Good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas in the Action News 5 Digital Desk. 7 o'clock, August 24th, a Thursday, and I know it's a surprise to you. Just kidding. It's going to be hot today, really hot. In fact, meteorologist Patrick Ellis talking on the morning broadcast this morning, saying that the feel-like temperature was one of the highest ever recorded in Memphis, 118 yesterday, Patrick.
Yes, not many hours have we averaged about 118 degrees here in Memphis. There was one observation yesterday, 99 over 79. So 99 degrees was the air temperature. Dew point was 79 degrees. Most of the day yesterday, I mean, we were hovering around 110, 115 degrees. And I think we do it again here today. And there probably will be a couple of spots that will probably get closer to 118, 119, 120 even as we roll through the afternoon hours. As we look at clouds and radar, a couple of clouds pushing through the skies here this morning. Otherwise, all sunshine to kick off the day. We have had a few patches of fog also to contend with here early on your Thursday morning. A live look from our High 5 camera in downtown, looking across the Mississippi River, Mud Island towards the Enbridge this morning as you're heading out the door. Already 83 degrees, so we've gone back up. We were at 82. That's the lowest that we've gotten so far this morning. Up to 83 now, 79 in Olive Branch, 75 Potts Camp, Hickory Flat, 75 in Oxford and Abbeville, Oakland as well as Somerville, 74. We got a couple of patches of fog up between Dyersburg to Covington down towards the south and east. So places like Friendship and Alamo, Nutbush, and for Brownsville down through Bolivar, Whiteville, and over towards Selmer this morning. That's where we're seeing some patchy areas of fog. The big story for all of us, though, the heat stress remains the high on mind throughout the day today. Actual air temperatures will approach 100 degrees, if not cresting above 100 in many instances this afternoon, if not between about 98 and 101 degrees, 102 degrees this afternoon, with an isolated chance that you could catch a shower here or there. Many spots, though, remaining dry. Heading into tomorrow morning, similar to this morning, 70s and 80s to start off on your Friday. Lots of sunshine. Again, making a run towards 100 degrees, maybe even cresting above 100 with an isolated pop-up shower or thunderstorm here or there. Many spots remaining dry. Again, 70s, 80s early on Saturday morning, but notice to the north, a little better chance for some showers and thunderstorms. Not completely off of the table here. That comes a front dropping into the area. Notice Cape Girardeau only 92 on Saturday. We're still in the upper 90s and near 100 degrees here in Memphis, though a few pop-up showers and thunderstorms could bubble up with the daytime heating, and a little better chance for those showers and storms to get a little bit more active heading into your Sunday evening. So Saturday evening. So I think North Mississippi may run a slightly better chance for seeing some showers and storms during that time frame. And looking out towards the west, a little cluster of thunderstorms that will make a run towards the Mid-South that could have some implications for early Sunday morning for parts of the area, but not everybody. Here's a look at rain chances ahead. Again, pretty paltry opportunities today, tomorrow, but maybe a little better chance by late Saturday as that front gets a little closer to us. That will sink down the heat down to the south of us and cooler weather on the way. So from the near 100 degree temperatures here today, we'll go below average or near below average heading into next week. Highs in the upper 80s by Monday and Tuesday, middle 80s by next Wednesday. That'll be some comfortable air along this frontal boundary that will make some progress in our direction heading through the weekend. So again, we might catch a couple of showers here and there through the weekend with a mixture of clouds and sunshine. Sunday morning starting off fairly quietly. There will be a better chance for some rain early Monday morning as the front works its way down to the south. Drier air begins to filter in the wake of that system. And as we mentioned earlier, look out here towards the east. That is where Franklin it will be located at by next Monday, which emerged into the Atlantic Ocean yesterday or early this morning. It will meander out here for a couple of days, likely becoming a hurricane by the end of tomorrow into early Saturday morning between Bermuda and the United States mainland, but likely not affecting directly the Carolina coastline, indirectly with some wave action, some rip current issues, but they will also have a front that will help to facilitate this turn back out towards the north and east, but could have some impacts for Bermuda here in the next day or so. So we'll start to watch that closely. Out farther in the tropics, we got one area, a little orange area, medium chance of development here behind the remnants of Emily. So this is what we're looking at here. Emily has a higher chance of development to redevelop into a tropical system as it makes its way off towards the north and east. And you see another wave coming off of Western Africa. Things are pretty active right now. But I think after we get past this little flurry of activity here in the short term, I think we're pretty quiet to round out the rest of the month. So Franklin and possibly this system here to watch over the next few days. And I know what you're saying. It's like, oh my gosh, that's the Gulf. Big thing, what we call the Central American Gyre may spawn off a little bit of circulation here by the time we head towards the end of the weekend. It will drift northward, get into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. So it is possible that we could have a Gulf system developing by mid next week. So we'll be watching that closely. So again, this is the 7-day potential, and it could be that we have that system developing in the eastern Gulf. And most of the computer guidance that would suggest that this does develop would turn it off towards the north and east and away from the mid-south. But this would be probably an issue for the Florida Peninsula, South Georgia, and back over into South Carolina. For us, it's going to be more so high pressure building into the area and cooler weather as well. So in the meantime, it's going to be hot, humid, muggy all across the board between now and Saturday. Near 100 today, about 101 to 100 tomorrow, 102 as high as we'll probably go tomorrow, 100 on your Saturday, and we'll go lower 90s come Sunday, upper 80s Monday, Tuesday, middle 80s next Wednesday. And some of the indications, if you look at the 10-day forecast on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app, remember, we don't just have the Memphis forecast. We also forecast for different zones in our area in Northeast Arkansas, North Mississippi, West Tennessee. Our West Tennessee communities next Wednesday, I got you down to 82 for a high next Wednesday and Thursday. So that's some good news there. We'll get some cooler weather to sneak in here for a couple of days. But you also notice a chance for a few showers, not a ton, but some shower and storm chances coming in here during the weekend. Probably our best opportunity overnight Sunday into early Monday. But the heat is on, Andrew, the next couple of days. Of course, keeping an eye on Friday with Friday night football happening. You know, the last night we struggled to get below 100 on the feels like temperatures here in Memphis. It took until after midnight before we actually fell below 100 degrees for a feels like temperature. Even this morning, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, we were 97 for a feels like temperature here in Memphis. So, you know, when you think about that, on the front side of the evening, it's also going to be pretty hot and steamy. Even if you do back up the time frame of those games to 8 o'clock, it's still going to operate like 103 to 108 degrees. So, you know, just be prepared for that as we go into your Friday. If you get lucky and catch a shower tomorrow, consider yourself that way. But, you know, the heat is going to be searing the next couple of days before we get to some reprieve next week.
Yeah, I mean, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, highs in the 80s, not bad.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, if you go on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app, we don't just forecast for Memphis. This is, you know, the Memphis forecast, okay? That's what we show you on television. But inside that app, the devil's in the details. You can go in there and type in Dyersburg, Tennessee. And we have an updated forecast for Dyersburg that we personally curate for Dyersburg. And that forecast has low 80s in the forecast for next Wednesday and Thursday. And lows down near 60. I wouldn't be surprised some of those spots, some of the cooler pockets in West Tennessee, upper 50s. So we'll take that once we get there, but you got to get past this huge speed bump between now and Saturday.
No question about it. Patrick Ellis, appreciate it, man. Thanks.
No problem.
Okay, now let's talk about the crime in Memphis. And we know that it's heightened. We know that we are expected to break the homicide rate right now on the pace that we're going yet again. And through all this crime and all the issues associated with it, the neighbors to the south of Memphis, South Haven, says they want to crack down on crime, and they say a lot of their crime is coming out of Memphis and coming down south. Sydney Gray has more from South Haven on what the mayor says is happening in his city and ways he wants to crack down on crime in South Haven.
Well, we are in South Haven this morning, and we're talking increased police budgets, more officers on the force, and new resources. Those are just some of the ways that South Haven's mayor, Darren Musselwhite, says the city is working on ways to improve and address crime across the city. And now the mayor says they're implementing an even newer initiative. It's called Operation Close the Door, and Mayor Musselwhite says it is critical for the future of the city here in South Haven. So in his report on Tuesday, the mayor says that South Haven Haven has increased its police funding from over $11 million in 2014 to more than $19 million for 2024. Now, that is a nearly 70% increase. He also says that police officer growth has reached 36% in the past 4 years. So you may be asking, well, why does all this matter? Well, the mayor says they must address the ever-changing climate when it comes to crime across the area. In a statement, Mayor Musselwhite says, quote, "I mean no disrespect to Memphis, but cannot ignore the impact that weak prosecutorial and judicial decisions, as well as law enforcement restrictions, will have on these suburban cities." He goes on to say, "I will not remain quiet and allow these outside factors to hurt South Haven. This is a pivotal time for our city." And so the mayor also told us that the city is going to be allocating new resources for its state line enforcement team to, quote, "secure the north-south arterial entrances of the city." And of course, we're going to be reaching out to Memphis leaders like Mayor Jim Strickland, the DA's office, and other leaders within Memphis and Shelby County to get their take and opinion on what they're hearing from South Haven's mayor. I'm in DeSoto County this morning. Sydney Gray, back to you.
All right, we are 21 days away from the Memphis Mayoral Forum, and in the next few days, Action News 5, the commercial appeal, and the League of Women Voters will announce which candidates will be on stage. But right now, we want to hear from you. You can share questions you would like to ask the candidates. Scan the QR code that you see on your screen. Leave a question. The Memphis Mayoral Forum will be at the University of Memphis's Rose Theater Thursday night, September 14th, the day before early voting begins. Andrew Douglas here in the Action News 5 digital desk. The CDC has a report that suggests that 9 in 10 Americans believe America is facing a mental health crisis. And unfortunately, as we come out of the pandemic, we're hearing more and more about suicides, particularly suicides among young people. So devastating. It's so disheartening. And what can we do about it as a concerned member of our community? What can we do about all this? Well, let's bring in someone with some background into this field that knows more than all of us. This is Michael Stemkowski. He works at Youth Villages. He is the Director for Clinical Training, Therapeutic Foster Care, and Crisis Services for Youth Villages. Of course, if you don't know, Youth Villages is a leader in children's emotional and behavioral health services. And Michael, I'll ask you, I appreciate you being on the digital desk. Do you agree with the Centers of Disease Control that say 9 in 10 Americans believe America is facing a health crisis, mental health crisis? Do you believe in that number, 9 in 10?
Wow, that's such a great question. One of the things that we've noticed with this data that's being reported by the Centers for Disease Control is that they track this intentionally so that they can support suicide prevention as part of a comprehensive approach. And so this data is really helpful. And when we hear about 9 out of 10 individuals in America are experiencing or aware of someone who may be experiencing a mental health crisis, is this accurate? Is this something we can lean into? Is this something that we can believe? And what I can say to that is, you know, suicide is a complex phenomenon that occurs globally, and it is tracked not only here in the United States, but across nations. And so for those living here in Memphis, Tennessee, as we're thinking through what can we do about it as we hear about these numbers is, one, let's look at the data. And so what the CDC does is they produce these annual reports on suicide data and statistics to help that conversation. And the reason for that is we want to engage everyone in partnership with reducing suicide in our community and in our families and in our schools. So that's kind of why they're doing that. And that's why I do believe that many Americans at this time do recognize that there is a mental health crisis going on. So
yeah. I appreciate you saying that. I should further explain that the CDC did release just a couple of nuggets here with regards to what you were just saying. So they said deaths by suicide declined from 2019 to 2020, but again, being the pandemic and some of the negative effects of the pandemic, one of which was mental health, yes, they increased. So these suicide rates, according to the CDC, increased by 5% in 2021. And then in 2022, last year, suicide deaths increased by another 3%. So you have 5% in 2021, 3% in 2023. I mean, that's 8% right there. Just an awful situation.
It is, and one of the things that as you read about experts in the field, they'll talk about during the pandemic, mental health increased, mental health stressors increased. They were expecting a slight dip, and then coming out of that with this increase, it's absolutely being affirmed from 2021 into 2022. So when you're seeing this increase, the CDC is recognizing increases in certain age groups. So middle-aged individuals had an uptick of 6.6%. Those 65 and older had an uptick of 8%. One thing that's really interesting in regards to young people is the CDC noted for that age group 10 to 24 years old, there was a decrease of 8% from 21 to 22. Now, this is really important, and it's reflective in the field. Certain agencies like CDC are promoting a reduction in suicide. Obviously, we want to get all suicides to zero, but by 2025, they would like to see a 20% decrease in these numbers that are coming out. And so that's one of the reasons that they track this data. There are other initiatives out there, like the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is also targeting reduction. And that's why you'll see as we roll into September, there's going to be a lot of awareness focused on suicide prevention in September. It's actually Suicide Prevention Month. There's a Suicide Prevention World Day on September 10th. And there's also a Suicide Prevention Week, the 10th through the 16th of September. And so this data is being released at this time as part of that comprehensive strategy to promote suicide prevention so that people have the numbers and they can see.
And as you know, Michael, I mean, suicide just leaves a wake of destruction. I mean, people are just devastated all around the person who does the act. What kind of warning signs can we alert parents? Can we alert family and loved ones if someone is having those difficult moments?
Yeah, thank you. Anytime we notice any sort of immediate risk, that's that primary warning sign that we're looking for, is that if someone's talking about wanting to die or kill themselves, or they're looking for a means, a manner, a method by which to self-injure themselves. And this could be them like searching online for a particular method or means or a firearm or something like that. Or if an individual is talking about feeling hopeless or having no reason to live, these are those immediate risk warning signs. But there are other warning signs to pay attention to that also reflect serious risk. And sometimes these are a little bit more innocuous. So an individual may just talk about feeling trapped or being a burden or being in pain. And it's not necessarily linked to, oh, I'm thinking about, harming myself, but it's there. And so we want to obviously pay attention to immediate risk warning signs and facilitate that connection through a warm handoff to a professional to assist that individual. But what about, professionals, physicians, school teachers, family members? What are those serious risk signs? And that may look like, someone in the family sleeping too much or too little, or, a family member starting to withdraw or feel isolated, or they have outbursts with rage. So just displaying extreme mood swings does not necessarily mean that someone may be suicidal, but these are serious risk warning signs that we want to pay attention to.
Great info there, Michael. Thank you. Let's talk about maybe some preventative measures, some prevention steps, things that we can tell the viewers, and we have thousands of viewers that watch us each and every morning here on the Digital Desk, to really kind of say, hey, let's if you see these warning signs, let's take these steps.
Yeah, that's such a great question there. So when you think about risk to die by suicide, the CDC does release the associated means of death with that. And so if you look at those, you might see that 55% of the deaths reported from last year were associated with firearms. Now, the reason I highlight that is that's one method to die by suicide, but other methods are tracked through the CDC data. And when you have a loved one or a family member or somebody that you're working with, or somebody through church or something, if you notice that immediate risk, get them connected to a professional. And what that professional is going to seek to do is to implement some counseling on access to lethal means. That we sometimes refer to that as CALM, and there's national free trainings that anyone could look at and learn more about with counseling on access to lethal means. But from the research, we know that suicidality comes in waves, that if an individual is experiencing some intense suicidal thoughts, by identifying a method, an intent with a plan, that those are high-risk thoughts, or they're actually preparing to do something, that we want to help them restrict that access to lethal means in the short term. Can we, get some distance between those thoughts, those behaviors, and that actual lethal means? And so refer to a professional. They can help guide a family member or a coworker or a friend through this process of restricting those lethal means. And beyond that, we also want to promote health. And the ways that we promote health as a mental health professional is that we'll spend some time talking about well-being. We'll spend some time talking about connection. What are the things that you do to recharge? Because one of the things that's really insidious about suicidality is the constriction of those thoughts. As an individual starts to see self-injury and death by suicide as the only means to solve a temporary problem, that's when we want to implement this means restriction. That's when we want to implement connection to supports. Connection is a really protective piece if we can help us sit in that pocket with individuals and help them stay safe.
That connection certainly missing, going back, I keep on going back to the pandemic, but that connection was lost. And so I don't think anyone wants to go back to those kind of shutdowns ever again.
Yeah.
Because there was just so much bad that
for
came
young
out of it.
people.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you'll give me a second there, I did want to mention for young people, connection. I think if there's any silver lining that did come out of the pandemic is how do our young people age 10 to 24 connect nowadays anyway? It's not that uncommon for them to connect via social media and watch a movie together or study together and things like that. And so that connection can be promoted both in person through activities for young people, but also recognizing the ways that digitally or electronically, how do we connect with one another? And that's important when we think about support groups for adults. There might be opportunities for us to connect virtually with others. Didn't mean to interrupt you there. Sorry about that.
No worry, Michael. No worries. Let's talk about help now, because if someone's watching this and they're checking off the boxes as you mention it, how do we help that person, that family member? Maybe they're going through some issues. Give us some of the best methods out there.
Yeah, so care transitions are really important. So if we notice one of those immediate warning signs or serious risk warning signs, or we're aware of risk factors for that individual, how do we connect them? How do we facilitate connection linkages to get them effective care and treatment? So we know from the research, some in the viewing audience may be viewing this from rural locations. So there might not be immediately available resources, or some in the viewing audience may identify as a population that's considered disproportionately represented in the data, and so getting that connection and getting that effective care and treatment implemented, that's part of that comprehensive approach to suicide prevention. So connection, reduction of access to means, effective care and treatment, and just supporting that help seeking in that individual. We know suicide is frequently associated with stigma, and that's one of the reasons behind, suicide in September Awareness Month, is we want to decrease that stigma, particularly for those vulnerable individuals who may have a moment of doubt, and we want to support that help seeking for them. So we want them to trust with their friends, their coworkers, their family members, their church members that, hey, I'm having a hard day today. And just supporting that help seeking to get them to care and treatment is one of the ways that we can do that. The only other thing I'll add is just identifying and assisting. Obviously mental health professionals are trained to screen and assess for suicidality, but part of the initiatives through the CDC and other programs is that we promote screening from peer to peer. Like if you go to the Columbia Lighthouse Project, there's community cards for parents, for teachers, for coaches, for peers, and for parents. And you can look at these cards and they can assist with identifying what are some of these signs and when should I help facilitate a connection to a professional.
It's also important to note that 988 is the suicide hotline. If anyone's thinking about that, that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 988. Michael, this has been a fantastic conversation. I'll leave it up to you. Anything else you want to mention before we let you go?
Yeah, I'll just say, Tennessee is a wonderful state. We've got a lot of specialized crisis services. Obviously, Youth Villages is one of the providers, but there are several providers of specialized crisis services. So the 988 number, as you mentioned, but also there are crisis text lines. You can just text TN to 741-741. And for some individuals, particularly young people, they may feel a little bit more comfortable with help seeking through a chat feature. And so that's an additional strategy to support help seeking. Really appreciate the time today to review the CDC data, talk about these warning signs, connection to resources and supports. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
I appreciate it, Michael. Thank you for joining us on the Action News 5 digital desk. Michael Stemprovsky with Youth Villages. We appreciate you and all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amanda Hansen back here at the Action News 5 digital desk, and today we are talking about a sport that is gaining massive popularity, and if you haven't heard, it's pickleball. And so many people are enjoying the sport, getting outside, and it has a lot of really good benefits. So joining me now to help talk a little bit more about this is Dr. Joe Lamplot with Campbell Clinic. Good morning, doctor. How you doing?
Hi, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you on here. Before we get started, have you played pickleball? Are you a fan?
I'm a huge fan. I've been playing actually for about 5 years. So before this exploded over the past year, I got into it a little bit early, and I love it.
That's awesome. It's funny because several years ago, I'd say probably like 10 plus years ago, I actually did a news story about how pickleball was really picking up, and a lot of people were excited about it. And since then, it's just exploded even more. So let's just talk about some of the benefits of this sport.
You know, it's keeping people active, some of which really have not been active till they found pickleball. It allows people to get good cardio activity. It allows people that maybe don't like the intensity of tennis and other sports. Since the court's smaller, it allows them to get around the court a little bit easier, and people are able to stay active, you know, oftentimes for hours at a time. So it's great cardio. It's enjoyable. Some people don't enjoy being inside, sitting on an elliptical for, 45 minutes to an hour. So it's just a better way to enjoy exercise, and it's also quite social.
And I mean, this is a sport that people of all levels and ages are trying and playing. Can we talk about maybe some of the common injuries, though, that could pop up?
Yeah, so as with any sport, we're seeing lots of participation in pickleball at all age levels, and injuries happen. You know, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be partaking in these activities. And I always tell patients, we want you to be active. We need you to be active. You know, movement is the zest of life. So the injuries that we're seeing most commonly are overuse. So overuse shoulder injuries, overuse elbow injuries like tennis elbow. We also see acute injuries, ankle sprains, people rolling their ankles, knee injuries. So we're seeing kind of the whole gamut, but the majority is kind of overuse injuries that tend to occur with lots of activity.
So how do you know if say, your elbow or something starts to bother you? How do you know if it's something minor, or you need to actually call someone, go into a doctor and get it checked out further?
So if there's any swelling in any joint, you should go get it checked out ASAP. If you notice any limited motion, if you can't bend it fully or straighten it out fully, you should have it looked at by a doctor. You know, if it's something that's just achy after a lot of playing pickleball, you can try some ice, some anti-inflammatories like Advil and Aleve, and if it gets better, that's fine. But if you're limited, if you're weak, if you're lacking motion or swelling, that needs to be evaluated by a physician.
How quickly should someone get in if they think they have some sort of serious injury from playing?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you have issues weight bearing, issues putting weight on a leg, if you rolled your ankle, if you hurt your knee, that should be seen same day. That should be seen pretty much immediately. Anything that's really limiting you should be seen ASAP. Lots of places, including ourselves, have walk-in clinics where we can see patients same day, same evening, next day. So I would say if it's limiting you, if it's bothering you, if it's swollen, if it's painful, come see somebody ASAP.
So how often are you seeing people that are coming in? Obviously, you're a pickleball fan yourself, but how often are you seeing people come in that maybe do have those injuries that need to get looked at?
So I would say at least a few times a week, and it's increasing in frequency. So, a year ago, you'd see pickleball injuries, once every few weeks, maybe once a month. But with the increasing frequency, you look at, golf clubs, tennis clubs, they're closing off courts to basically, allow people to play pickleball. Same thing with public tennis courts. They're basically closing these areas off to allow pickleball only courts. So with increasing participation, we're seeing injuries almost on a daily basis at our clinic.
Oh, wow. We've been talking a lot about injuries, but like any sport, there are ways to maybe help prevent injuries from happening. Do you have any advice as far as that goes?
Absolutely. So the two things I recommend are, beyond just doing a warm-up where you're stretching out, make sure you're doing some kind of a dynamic warm-up, such as running around the court, cutting, pivoting, doing some simulation of pickleball before you actually play. Some light serving, some hitting the ball back and forth before you actually dive into the games. So you should probably be doing about 10 to 15 minutes of stretching, jogging, light hitting before you actually start playing, just to decrease the risk and get that body ready for those aggressive movements.
Good advice. And if we have people that are maybe listening, watching this right now on our various live streams, how can they get in touch with you? Where can they go to get some more information?
Yeah, so the best way to get in touch with us is to go to campbellclinic.com. You can book directly online to have care with one of us at the Campbell Clinic. The other way is to call 901-759-3111, and that's our direct line to schedule appointments with us.
All right, good deal. Anything else, Doctor, you want to mention before we let you go this morning?
Yeah, the other thing in terms of prevention is, make sure pickleball isn't the only thing you're doing. So on days that you're not playing, it's good to get cardio through jogging. It's good to lift weights. Do something else aside from pickleball. Same thing with young athletes. We usually recommend not focusing on a single sport, but trying to kind of be a little bit more well-rounded. Same with pickleball. Make sure you're doing a little bit of something else too.
And another good thing that I do love about pickleball is you can play it indoors, because we're going to have some hot temperatures today, and obviously we're getting into the summer months, so that's another benefit if people are probably trying to look to get some exercise and maybe avoid being outside, right?
Absolutely, and if you are going to be outside, short bursts and stay very hydrated.
All right, well, Dr. Joe Lamplot with Campbell Clinic, thank you so much for your time and joining us here on the Action News 5 Digital Desk. You have a great one, all right?
All right. Thank you, Amanda. You too.
Thank you. Amanda Hansen here in the Action News 5 Digital Desk. A lot of kids, pretty much all kids here in the Mid-South are back in school, and we figured it was a good time right now to talk about how local teachers can embrace inclusive education in the classroom. And we have two people joining us now who can talk so much more about it. Katie Novak and Dr. Kristen Rodriguez joining here to talk about their experiences, challenge, and triumphs in fostering inclusive education environments. They're also the authors of In Support of Children. Good morning, ladies. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So I want to go ahead and dive right in and talk more about this topic. This is something that I've done stories on in the past, and I think is so important, especially for parents that are maybe struggling to incorporate inclusive education for their child. So I guess let's go ahead and start off and talk about, if each of you can talk about your experience and why this is such an important topic for you. And Katie, let's go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, sure. So I am Dr. Katie Novak, and I do a lot of work focused on a framework called Universal Design for Learning, which is essentially how do we design learning so that every student has access to a classroom with their peers, they can work towards the same goals, and they really feel like they belong there. And one of the hallmarks of universal design is this idea of firm goals and flexible means. And so being really, really clear about what is it that we want our students to know and do, and then thinking about what are appropriate pathways that will allow them to do that. So many people who are viewing probably remember a classroom growing up where a teacher poses a question and all of us are required to take out our notebooks, take out a blue or black pen, and then write the answer to those questions. And we're really asking teachers to think about, well, what really is the goal here? Is this a writing standard? And sometimes it is. But if it's really about students sharing what they're learning, then we can provide lots of options and choices and say to students, what is the best way for you to share your learning here? And when we talk about inclusive practice, I think it's really helpful to think about the opposite, which is, what are our practices that are excluding our students? So if we have a student who really struggles with dysgraphia or fine motor skills, and we say the only pathway to share what you have learned about animal adaptation is to write the answers to these questions, we're excluding a lot of learners from being able to do that. And so the more that we really think about what is it that we want students to know and do, and what are the potential pathways that will allow them to do that, the more that we can allow kids to personalize their education and feel like they belong. And a really easy analogy before Kristen shares her work is, if we were going to invite a diverse group of 25 or 30 people over to our house for dinner, and we were to serve only meaty, cheesy lasagna and a glass of milk, we know that that's not going to work for everyone. So we might say, ooh, that milk might be a barrier because some people don't like milk or they're lactose intolerant. And certainly, I'm sure we all have friends who have different dietary needs. So if the goal is, why don't we enjoy a lovely meal together? Maybe we can potluck, or maybe we can create a buffet and say, the goal is really that you have a lovely meal, and what options can we provide so that you can come, you can meet that goal, and you feel like you belong here.
For sure. And I like the way you kind of describe that, because it makes sense to a lot of people when you put it that way, when you talk about a dinner party and making sure that everyone has something that they can enjoy at the table. Kristen, tell us more about your experience and your story.
Absolutely. So Katie and I often partner as an advocate for our educators and for the students to make sure that the environment in which they are is inclusive. And so as we think about getting back to school, a very exciting time, what are some strategies that parents can advocate for or schools can engage in that provide opportunities for inclusion? And so there's a couple of different approaches to this. One, for example, I'm hearkening back to Emily Stile. Back in the 1980s, she wrote an essay about how our curriculum can provide both mirrors and windows for our students. So they see themselves reflected in what they're learning, but it's also an opportunity to learn about others, to expand their worldview. And so we want to make sure that our classrooms provide both mirrors and windows for our kiddos. One really exciting new tool that I think more and more educators are understanding and starting to utilize is assistive technology through the use of AI, of artificial intelligence. How exciting. So there are some really neat tools that are now available for our classrooms so that students can be included, so that they can feel like they have a voice. So there might be something that might be text to speech or speech to text that our students can access. So if a student is having trouble articulating their needs, or they might have fine motor needs that are impacting their ability to write, but they still want to communicate that, they can use speech to text. If a student has maybe dyslexia and they're unable to decode, but we want them to have exposure to grade level text, we might use text to speech so that they can have that, so they can hear what others are reading, so that they can understand and participate in the classroom. There's some really neat AI out there that will do transcription for English learners, that will do communication boards for nonverbal students, that will even describe the learning environment for students that do not have sight, or will provide captions for students who have trouble hearing. And so again, these are all tools that our educators can use to create a more inclusive classroom this fall. And one last kind of neat new tool or resource that's available to our educator colleagues all across the country is the use of assistive technology as a means to allow them to support small group instruction. What we really want to do is not exclude our students that need intervention from the classroom. We don't want to pull them out. We want to keep them included in our classroom. So maybe when a small group of students are working with a classroom teacher during independent time, that teacher as a resource can use something like Khan Academy has a new resource called Khanmigo. It's a tutoring bot. It's not meant to replace a teacher, an educator, just something that can be available to students while the teacher might be working with a small group of students. Or MyEssay AI, which provides written feedback for students on a more consistent, ongoing basis. If I'm a former high school English teacher, it's really hard for me to get that written feedback on such a consistent basis with over 100 students that I support. But we can do that in small group instruction and allow something like MyEssay AI to provide a frequency of written feedback. So there's some tools and strategies that are new that we can use this coming fall.
I think that's so cool, like all the different AI technology that's out there now that can really help assist with something like this. I know that I've talked to parents in the past when they have really fought for that inclusive education for their child, and there's been challenges along the way, or they don't know how to get started or know who to reach out to, and it's great to know that y'all are advocates for that. If there is a parent that's maybe watching right now and saying, hey, how do I begin to advocate for my child and to take the next step within their school, what advice would either of you share?
So I am a mom of 4 students who are in school. I have a son going into 9th grade. My kids start next week. I have twin 7th graders, incoming 7th grader, and also a son going into 3rd grade. And I know that every parent, every guardian wants their kid to go into a classroom space where they're going to accomplish things that they didn't even know were possible in a space that feels like a community, in a space that feels like they belong. And I think everybody envisions what that space looks like, and maybe some parents just don't know what to call it. And I think that it's so important that our federal laws in education talk about the importance of universal design for learning. And so really checking in with districts and saying, you know, how are your teachers supported to universally designed instruction? As Kristen had said, this is not meant to be something that teachers have to carry all on their own. It's about how do we as a school, how do we as a district ensure that we're working together to make sure that kids are getting what they need. And so there are lots and lots of kind of supportive structures through policy about this concept of universal design. It's also endorsed from the United Nations. And it's really about how do we ensure that our kids are getting adequate challenge and support while also being a part of their classroom. So one of the things I would say is reach out to the teacher, say, I'm really excited about partnering with you this year. I'm really excited to hear about this framework, Universal Design for Learning. If I can be helpful at all, letting you know what some of the barriers are that my child has faced, or I'm happy to be a partner and starting to think about what might some of the pathways be. I think that that partnership is really, really important. Yesterday, I received an email from my incoming 3rd graders teacher that's like, when I see you at back to school night, I want to be able to tell you what I love about your child and just tell me, like, what does your child need to learn to feel like they belong? And I think that even if that doesn't come from the teacher, if you're listening as a parent, taking a little bit of time to prepare that, email, if you will, about why you're going to be so lucky to have my amazing child in your class. And let me just tell you some things that make them beautifully unique and some of the things that have worked historically, just so you're not starting from scratch. And you can be kind of like the friend that brings the potluck casserole to really help teachers not feel like it's completely on their shoulders to have to figure this all out on their own.
Kristen, what would you like to add?
Yes, absolutely. As a parent myself, who all of my children have actually gone through K-12 education, university, and now in their careers. So I've had the opportunity to think through and be a parent across all stages of their development. And one of the things that I did as they got a little bit older was start to give them some agency and advocating for themselves about what their needs are, creating scripts, having them practice that conversation at home, and having them be the first person to address their learning needs with their teachers, and creating that opportunity for them to advocate for themselves. And then if we felt like they weren't there yet in terms of getting their needs met, then offering myself as an additional resource to meet with the staff as a parent and say, how can we work collaboratively to make sure that my child is successful? But that's one great technique I think you can use with some of the older students. I think you can begin it as early as elementary, which is how do you learn to respectfully and thoughtfully advocate for your own learning needs within the classroom?
Well, Kristen, Katie, I appreciate y'all so much for joining us here on the Digital Desk. Really, this is a lot of good information. I know I was taking notes. I know there's parents that had got a lot of really good takeaways. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
I know it's a surprise to you. Just kidding. It's going to be hot today, really hot. In fact, meteorologist Patrick Ellis talking on the morning broadcast this morning, saying that the feel-like temperature was one of the highest ever recorded in Memphis, 118 yesterday, Patrick.
Yes, not many hours have we averaged about 118 degrees here in Memphis. There was one observation yesterday, 99 over 79. So 99 degrees was the air temperature. Dew point was 79 degrees. Most of the day yesterday, I mean, we were hovering around 110, 115 degrees. And I think we do it again here today. And there probably will be a couple of spots that will probably get closer to 118, 119, 120 even as we roll through the afternoon hours. As we look at clouds and radar, a couple of clouds pushing through the skies here this morning. Otherwise, all sunshine to kick off the day. We have had a few patches of fog also to contend with here early on your Thursday morning. A live look from our High Five camera in downtown, looking across the Mississippi River, Mud Island towards the M Bridge this morning as you're heading out the door. Already 83 degrees, so we've gone back up. We were at 82. That's the lowest that we've gotten so far this morning. Up to 83 now, 79 in Olive Branch, 75 Potts Camp, Hickory Flat, 75 in Oxford and Abbeville, Oakland as well as Somerville, 74. We got a couple of patches of fog up between Dyersburg to Covington down towards the south of Nace. So places like Friendship and Alamo, Nutbush, and for Brownsville down through Bolivar, Whiteville, and over towards Selmer this morning. That's where we're seeing some patchy areas of fog. The big story for all of us, though, the heat stress remains the high on mind throughout the day today. Actual air temperatures will approach 100 degrees, if not cresting above 100 in many instances this afternoon, if not between about 98 and 101 degrees, 102 degrees this afternoon, with an isolated chance that you could catch a shower here or there. Many spots, though, remaining dry. Heading into tomorrow morning, similar to this morning, 70s and 80s to start off on your Friday. Lots of sunshine. Again, making a run towards 100 degrees, maybe even cresting above 100 with an isolated pop-up shower or thunderstorm here or there. Many spots remaining dry. Again, 70s, 80s early on Saturday morning, but notice to the north, a little better chance for some showers and thunderstorms. Not completely off of the table here. That comes a front dropping into the area. Notice Cape Girardeau only 92 on Saturday. We're still in the upper 90s and near 100 degrees here in Memphis, though a few pop-up showers and thunderstorms could bubble up with the daytime heating, and a little better chance for those showers and storms to get a bit more active heading into your Sunday evening. So Saturday evening. So I think North Mississippi may run a slightly better chance for seeing some showers and storms during that time frame. And then looking out towards the west, a little cluster of thunderstorms that will make a run towards the Mid-South that could have some implications for early Sunday morning for parts of the area, but not everybody. Here's a look at rain chances ahead. Again, pretty paltry opportunities today, tomorrow, but maybe a little better chance by late Saturday as that front gets a little closer to us. That will sink down the heat down to the south of us and cooler weather on the way. So from the near 100-degree temperatures here today, we'll go below average or near below average heading into next week. Highs in the upper 80s by Monday and Tuesday, middle 80s by next Wednesday. That'll be some comfortable air along this frontal boundary that will make some progress in our direction heading through the weekend. So again, we might catch a couple of showers here and there through the weekend with a mixture of clouds and sunshine. Sunday morning starting off fairly quietly. There will be a better chance for some rain early Monday morning as the front works its way down to the south. Drier air begins to filter in the wake of that system. And as we mentioned earlier, look out here towards the east. That is where Franklin it will be located at by next Monday, which emerged into the Atlantic Ocean yesterday or early this morning. It will meander out here for a couple of days, likely becoming a hurricane by the end of tomorrow into early Saturday morning between Bermuda and the United States mainland, but likely not affecting directly the Carolina coastline, indirectly with some wave action, some rip current issues, but they will also have a front that will help to facilitate this turn back out towards the north and east, but could have some impacts for Bermuda here in the next day or so. So we'll start to watch that closely. Out farther in the tropics, we got one area, a little orange area, medium chance of development here behind the remnants of Emily. So this is what we're looking at here. Emily has a higher chance of development to redevelop into a tropical system as it makes its way off towards the north and east. And you see another wave coming off of Western Africa. Things are pretty active right now. But I think after we get past this little flurry of activity here in the short term, I think we're pretty quiet to round out the rest of the month. So Franklin and possibly this system here to watch over the next few days. And I know what you're saying. It's like, oh my gosh, that's the Gulf. Big thing, what we call the Central American gyre, may spawn off a little bit of circulation here by the time we head towards the end of the weekend. We'll drift northward, get into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. So it is possible that we could have a Gulf system developing by mid next week. So we'll be watching that closely. So again, this is the 7-day potential, and it could be that we have that system developing in the eastern Gulf, and most of the computer guidance that would suggest that this does develop would turn it off towards the north and east and away from the mid-south. But this would be probably an issue for the Florida Peninsula, South Georgia, and back over into South Carolina. For us, it's going to be more so high pressure building into the area and cooler weather as well. So in the meantime, it's going to be hot, humid, muggy all across the board between now and Saturday. Near 100 today, about 101 to 100 tomorrow, 102 as high as we'll probably go tomorrow, 100 on your Saturday, and we'll go lower 90s come Sunday, upper 80s Monday, Tuesday, middle 80s next Wednesday. And some of the indications, if you look at the 10-day forecast on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app, remember, we don't just have just the Memphis forecast. We also forecast for different zones in our area, Northeast Arkansas, North Mississippi, West Tennessee. Our West Tennessee communities next Wednesday, I got you down to 82 for a high on next Wednesday and Thursday. So that's some good news there. We'll get some cooler weather to sneak in here for a couple of days. But you also notice a chance for a few showers, not a ton, but some shower and storm chances coming in here during the weekend. Probably our best opportunity overnight Sunday into early Monday. But the heat is on, Andrew, the next couple of days. Of course, keeping an eye on Friday with Friday night football happening. You know, the last night we struggled to get below 100 on the feels like temperatures here in Memphis. It took until after midnight before we actually fell below 100 degrees for a feels like temperature. Even this morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, we were 97 for a feels like temperature here in Memphis. So, you know, when you think about that, on the front side of the evening, it's also going to be pretty hot and steamy. Even if you do back up the time frame of those games to 8 o'clock, it's still going to operate like 103 to 108 degrees. So, you know, just be prepared for that as we go into your Friday. If you get lucky and catch a shower tomorrow, consider yourself that way. But, you know, the heat is going to be searing the next couple of days before we get to some reprieve next week.
Yeah, I mean, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, highs in the 80s, not bad.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, if you go on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app, we don't just forecast for Memphis. This is, you know, the Memphis forecast, okay? That's what we show you on television. But inside that app, the devil's in the details. You can go in there and type in Dyersburg, Tennessee. And we have an updated forecast for Dyersburg that we personally curate for Dyersburg. And that forecast has low 80s in the forecast for next Wednesday and Thursday. And lows down near 60. I wouldn't be surprised some of those spots, some of the cooler pockets in West Tennessee, upper 50s. So we'll take that once we get there, but you got to get past this huge speed bump between now and Saturday.
No question about it. Patrick Ellis, appreciate it, man. Thanks. We have a couple events that are coming up at the Memphis Central Library, the Benjamin Hooks Library, to kick off September. Let's bring in Dylan Miller, Humanities Department with Memphis Public Libraries, to talk about these two events. Good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. How are you?
Doing well, thank you very much. So, so tell us about. We got an '80s night and a Pride kickoff. Tell me more.
On Friday, September 1st, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., we're going to have a LGBTQIA+ adults only, 21 and up, 80s themed dance party. There'll be live trivia, free food catered by ACO, free alcohol donated by Wiseacre Brewing, and there will be a small prize for the winner with the guest with the best 80s outfit. And yeah, it's all just free for the public to enjoy. You can register to secure your spot. And it is generously funded by the Friends of the Library.
The 80s, any kind of 80s revival thing is always going to be a good time, and the outfits, are going to be just amazing, I'm sure. So what else you got? You got the 80s night. That's September 1st from 6 to 9 at the Central Library. And tell us about the other event.
And then on the following day, we have our 5th annual Pride Kickoff, which is a family-friendly event that takes place on Saturday, September 2nd, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we will have all of our standard offerings. We have over 20 tabling nonprofits that can provide guests with tons of resources that they may not have known that we have here in the Memphis area. We give away raffle prizes to everyone who visits the tables. There'll be a bunch of fun carnival-style games, our Rainbow Family Story Time, and the Tennessee Equality Project is going to do a presentation, and so much more. So we hope everyone can come out. And International Paper provided us with a grant that allowed us to purchase over 200 books that we're going to give away for free at the event. So just by coming, you could secure your own book. Limit one per person, but yeah.
So let me ask you this. So these are Pride events. Is there something in September that I'm missing? Because I thought Pride Month was in June.
That's a fair question. So Memphis Pride Month has historically been celebrated in September. It isn't anymore, seemingly since the pandemic has happened. It has moved to June, but that's when our event has taken place. We first started this event in 2019 in collaboration with Out Memphis, and we started in September in collaboration with their guidance. So that could change, but this year it's September.
Okay, and tell me about attendance in years past. I mean, you guys keep doing it. I would assume that the attendance it's well attended.
It is, yeah. Like I said, the nighttime event for adults is new. This is our 2nd time doing that. But for the Family Day, being our 5th year, not counting 2020, obviously, but we've averaged about 200 guests every year. And so many families love this event. It's a really safe space for everyone. You can tell it's some people's first Pride that they're getting to go to. And worth noting, we have a small mini Pride parade at the event for all ages to enjoy, which is really wholesome. It always makes me cry. So, yeah.
Okay, and if people want some more information, where can they go to get it?
Go to memphislibrary.org. This is all listed on the events page. To register for the adults only night, that would be on September 1st on the events page. But if you just want more info, all of it's listed there. It's also featured on the homepage right now.
Okay, great. Dylan Miller, Humanities Department with Memphis Public Libraries. Appreciate that. Good luck with the events September 1st and September 2nd. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. You have a great day.
Well, good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas here in the Action News 5 Digital Desk. So let's talk to some of those homeowners out there, perhaps first-time homeowners. You bought your first house, you feel great, but you notice that there are some things that you would like to change, perhaps some upgrades, some renovations, a first repair. Where do you start, right? It can be overwhelming to be that first-time home buyer. We've all been there, and certainly it can be daunting, let's just say. A new survey is shedding some light on the stresses of being that first-time home buyer, and it's led to the development of a new helpful solution. Let's bring in a couple of people who can help right now. It's called the New Homeowner Hub, and I'm joined now by Catherine Moots and Tyler Peffery, joining us from the Home Depot this morning with details on a new resource for first-time home buyers. and homeowners and advice. Catherine, let's start with you. What are some of the biggest takeaways, first off, on this survey that Home Depot did? Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having us. So we conducted a survey of millennial and Gen Z first-time homeowners, and we found that among this group, one of the leading causes of anxiety is having to complete those home improvement and home renovation projects. Even though 8 in 10 of our survey respondents said that they want to get better at doing these projects. And over 90% of them answered that having access to a centralized resource that would help provide guidance for first-time homeowners would be beneficial to them. So all of this data is what led the Home Depot to create the new Homeowners Hub.
Okay, and let's talk a little bit about that new Homeowner Hub. Tyler, I understand you got some details for us.
I sure do. So the new Homeowner Hub is a free online resource that provides step-by-step project guides, virtual workshops, design inspirations, product recommendations, pretty much everything to equip a new homeowner with the confidence and knowledge to turn their first house into their first home.
You know, there's so many different things to go through. I can remember being a first-time home buyer, and you want to figure out, okay, what can I do myself, like a DIY project? What do I need to accomplish now, and then what can I put off for a time later, because it's so expensive to do those projects. Is that some of the things that the Homeowner Hub kind of helps people with?
Definitely. So the new Homeowner Hub really has all these different kinds of projects, from remodeling an entire bathroom, repairing drywall, installing cabinets, and even replacing a kitchen sink. But if you do need to go back to the basics and kind of just learn more about your home, we've got that too on the Hub. And you can learn more about your HVAC and plumbing systems and how to take care of your yard, even just how to learn how to use power tools. And where Catherine's a little bit more design savvy, I am not. So my favorite part about this is that there's decor and design inspirations for every room of your house, even on the outdoor sections of your home as well.
Catherine, let's talk to you for a minute about help tackling these projects. So, you know, I'm not the handiest guy. There are some things that I can do okay, but then there are some projects that we just need a professional to do. How do we get help with that?
Yeah, well, you are also talking to a do-it-for-me kind of person. So if you even are a do-it-for-me kind of person, you can go to the new Homeowners Hub, and you can be connected with all of the resources that the Home Depot has, including our tool and truck rental program, our services department, and all of these can be found on our mobile app as well. But of course, I also just love walking into our stores and asking our friendly store associates for help. They're always there to help with anything else that you might need.
Okay, appreciate it, Catherine and Tyler. Where can we go for more information, and is there anything else you guys would like to mention at this time?
So you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen here, or you can go to homedepot.com/new-homeowners to get on this new Homeowner Hub.
Okay, Tyler, Catherine, we really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks very much, and I know that you've probably helped some of those new homeowners out there deal with all this overwhelming homeownership issues. Appreciate it this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Hey, thanks for joining us here on ActionNews5.com, as well as the Action News 5 digital properties and Action News 5 Plus digital channels 5.5. All right, so impact forecast. We're talking more so the heat and humidity cranking up yet again. The heat stress feeling closer to 108 to 116. Here's the thing. Yesterday, we had a feels like temperature crest at 118 officially at Memphis International. And unfortunately, we'll probably do it again today. So take care of yourself in this heat if you do have to be outside for any prolonged period of time. Our friends who are working in construction, working sanitation, our police officers have to be outside for any length of time. Of course, the students playing in football and band practices here later on this afternoon. The heat is definitely going to be on. We'll top out close to 100 degrees. There might be a rogue shower to go along with that today amid a mixture of sunshine and clouds. I think more sun than not, as we've seen the last few days. 70s and 80s again to start off on your Friday. We'll do the whole process over again. A rogue shower here or there, just more so the heat and humidity combination cranking up as we head through the afternoon hours for today. We'll drop down into the 70s and 80s for the afternoon hours, the morning hours of your Saturday. Notice to the north, some better rain chances sneaking in here. That is a front that is going to be working its way into the mid-south. That could kick up a couple of showers and storms. Still nearing 100 come Saturday. Still feeling closer to about 110 degrees, but maybe some of us getting some cooling relief from some showers and thunderstorms. We may have a few more showers and storms to contend with during the overnight period of your Saturday into Sunday. Another wave of showers and storms could be on the way as well, heading into Sunday night into early Monday. So when you look at it here, rain chances ahead. There might be, again, a rogue shower today, tomorrow. A little better chance could sneak in here on Saturday. That comes by way of that next front coming down the pipeline. And that next front will actually usher in some much cooler air from near 100 degrees that we get here today to the 80s for highs going into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. We'll take that and run with it. There's your front dropping into the area. New area of low pressure forming close to St. Louis as we head towards Saturday morning. That front gets a little closer to us. That will help to spark the few showers and storms that we could kick up on late Saturday into early Sunday. Notice behind that front kind of hangs around, lingers, and may have a little batch of showers and storms across northern Arkansas to get into the start of your Monday. That front then works its way farther south and ushers in the cooler, drier air in the wake of it, and we'll feel much more comfortable heading into the end of the work week. All right, here's a look at what's going on here across the tropics. And we've got a couple of different things to speak about here this morning. Of course, we've got the remnants of Emily, which is still working its way northward. That could try to regenerate here shortly. We also have Franklin, which is making its way north of Hispaniola this morning and could very well have some impacts for Bermuda here in the next couple of days. Notice the track here kind of goes cattywampus as it gets caught up with a frontal boundary. They'll be moving offshore. That's the same front that's going to usher in the cooler air for us. So we'll stay offshore of the U.S. mainland, but it will likely bring some indirect impacts, surf and issues more so than anything else. Then in the Gulf of Mexico, okay? This is something that we're going to be watching here. This is actually not in the Gulf. It's a disturbance that is actually over Central America. This is what we call the Central American gyre. And sometimes you can get these gyres to get a little bit more concentrated, spawn off into the warmer waters of the Caribbean or the Gulf, and sometimes can get a tropical system to flare up with it. There has a medium chance of development here in the next couple of days, and you notice the track here through 7 days up into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Some of the modeling does suggest that this does develop into a tropical system. To what extent to be seen at this point, but most indicators also keep it to our south and towards the east. So places like the Florida Peninsula, Florida Panhandle, South Georgia, into the Carolinas. That'll be something for them to watch in the next few days. For us, it's more so high pressure that dominates the weather as we head through much of next week. So here's a look at our 7-day forecast. 100 today, 102 tomorrow, nearing records today, tomorrow, even getting closer to record on Saturday. The record high on Saturday, set back in 1943, 103 degrees. We'll fall short of that on Saturday, with a chance for a front to bring us a chance for a few showers and storms. We'll take whatever we can get. We need the rainfall at this point. Sunday into Monday, I think that rain chance 30% is a little highest for the morning hours of your Monday, then turning partly sunny. And then we should dry things out. Maybe a lingering shower overnight Monday into early Tuesday. It's all done, and then sunshine to return through the mid portion of next week. The 86 here in Memphis will translate to lower 80s in places like Dyersburg, as well as Friendship and down towards Brownsville as we head through your Wednesday. So some cooler weather is on the way, but we have to get past the searing summer heat. Take care of yourself in this heat. Being neighborly, checking in on folks who may not have adequate access to cooling relief, and just staying hydrated. Remember the mantra we have said the last couple of days: pre-hydrate, hydrate, rehydrate, as we continue with the searing heat at least through Saturday.
Okay, small business owners across the country are taking one major cell phone company to court. In this Watching Your Wallet report, Carice Jackman has more on the lawsuit against T-Mobile.
Outside of her family, the one thing Jean Liriano cared about deeply was being a business owner.
At the beginning, it was exciting. You know, you're hungry and you want to go and live the American dream.
For 24 years, Liriano did live that American dream. She owned an electronics shop that sold cell phones in a neighborhood she adores.
There wasn't places like that. There wasn't a place where Hispanic people could go and make a payment in Spanish. You connect with them, they bring their family members to you, and it's like an extended family.
Her store eventually started selling solely for T-Mobile. Liriano says she spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to revamp her store into a T-Mobile franchise. When T-Mobile and Sprint merged in 2018, Liriano says the company told them not to worry.
Before this, they never gave us anything to think that they were going to shut down. It was the opposite. They made us believe that we were going to grow with them.
Business owner Robert Rodriguez says he experienced the same thing.
So they basically promised, that they will keep all the stores and they will keep investing in the industry and, keep growing. But turns out that that's not really what happened. We end up getting hurt.
According to a new class action lawsuit, Rodriguez, Liriano, and dozens of other business owners claim T-Mobile played a dirty game of what they call squeeze and buy. The 26-page lawsuit claims T-Mobile knew the small business owners' agreements lasted until June 2024, but that T-Mobile, quote, conspired with its master dealer, Arc Telecom, to create an earlier and artificial termination date, and that over a period of months, T-Mobile allowed Arc Telecom to contact the owners to work them over. The business owner's complaint also says that Arc Telecom offered to buy stores for little to nothing, depriving the owners of their livelihood and their investments.
How much money did you even spend in renovating and reinvesting in your business?
Okay, about $150,000.
It's been really hard because
time is okay.
Because what am I gonna do now? I mean, this is what I've been doing since I got to this country. What am I gonna do?
We reached out to both Arc Telecom and T-Mobile for comments on the lawsuit. They never responded. According to the U.S. Government Accountability Office's analysis of FTC data, there were about 5,900 franchise-related complaints between 2018 and 2022. But the GAO also says many franchise owners never filed complaints with the FTC because they didn't know they could. If you go to the FTC's website, you can file a report by clicking on Job or Franchise and detailing what occurred. Liriano is glad she's speaking out, and as she waits for the lawsuit to pan out, she says she'll continue to fight while missing the customers and business she dedicated her life to.
This cannot be happening. There gotta be some regulation or something.
With this Watching Your Wallet, I'm Carice Jackman.
Have you heard of imposter syndrome? We've talked about it a lot here on the Action News 5 digital desk. Had a very interesting interview about it. It's the feeling that your successes are not deserved despite being a very high-performing person in a professional setting. It's the feeling you will never be good enough. No matter how good you are, you will never be good enough. And many studies have found that 85% of people suffer from some sort of low self-esteem. It was the subject of a Best Life report. It was very interesting, and it really kind of showed you the signs that indicate whether or not you're in a toxic relationship with yourself. Take a look. Are you talking down on yourself?
People won't like me. I'm gonna have a bad day.
You look so dumb.
Over-engaging in negative self-talk is the first indicator that you may be in a toxic relationship with yourself. Researchers say the environment you grow up in plays a huge role in the way we view ourselves.
People who are in a toxic relationship with themselves, they're going to have very limited self-care.
And it's not just a mind game. A toxic relationship with yourself can also show up physically. Struggling with self-care and doing things alone are telltale signs.
There's also a lot of substance abuse for people who have unhealthy relationships with themselves as well.
It can also turn you into someone you hate. People in a toxic relationship with themselves are reported to engage in destructive behaviors more and overstrive towards perfectionism.
They look like they're actually doing really well when on the inside they're actually suffering because they're just constantly striving for perfection.
If you are in a toxic relationship with yourself, the best thing you can do is try writing to yourself with compassion, surrounding yourself with other compassionate people and
find a really good therapist.
Many people also have difficulty setting boundaries when they view themselves negatively. Remind yourself that it's for your own protection and it's not always about the other person. With Ways to Live Your Best Life, I'm Andrew Douglas, Action News 5. All right, let's talk about high school football. Well, guess what? These schedules may be altered tomorrow due to the extreme heat. In fact, health leaders are reminding parents, coaches, and students to stay hydrated. Be aware of signs of heat exhaustion, heat stroke, like headaches, vomiting, fatigue, and a rise in body temperatures. Doctors also recommend parents and coaches give those players plenty of breaks.
They can have water before practice. To keep them hydrated. You could get towels to wet and put around their necks or in their head to keep them cool.
Okay, so for a list of game times that have been adjusted this week, visit our website, actionnews5.com. New attraction for kids coming to the Lichterman Nature Center in Memphis. Check it out here. Crews broke ground yesterday on the Discovery Forest. It's an interactive children's play area. They'll be able to find natural materials, water, other objects that shape the landscape. Discovery Forest will be under construction this fall, set to open later next spring. Very, very cool. Okay, they're masterpieces that make our city shine. Public art installations adding color and excitement to areas in Memphis you might not expect. Have you seen this mural under I-40 in the overpass downtown? Well, the woman behind these pieces, that's the focus of a 5-star story that Kim Clark reported. She talked to and shows you not only the artist that captures the soul of the city in her work, she also tries to inspire all of us to reveal more of our own. Take a look.
From this I Love Memphis mural in the Crosstown neighborhood to glittering love doves in Overton Square, Kongwei Pang is putting her mark on Memphis.
Sequin is perfect for the space to vibrate the whole environment.
The Love Doves mural was the first public art piece in Memphis that Kongwei and her husband, artist Jay Crum, created under the pseudonym Tarot Pop Studios.
Because of that piece, we've been get invited to so many different places to install some kind of like same material art.
That includes installations in Denver, Auburn, Austin, and Nashville. And since moving to Memphis 23 years ago to attend the Memphis College of Art, the Malaysian transplant has transformed mundane city surfaces into things of beauty, like this mural under the I-40 overpass on Main Street.
So hopefully this mural that is kind of help connect these two bridges together, the South Main and North Main, and revitalize that North Main area.
Just steps away, inside the Renaissance Convention Center, another Tarot Pop masterpiece, representing what Kongwei called Memphis' endless growth and music history.
Then we still want to capture the music. If we talking about music, you gotta like, that Memphis is belong one of the music city. Right. So we're using the Memphis Mississippi River Bridge to form the reflection, to form the blue guitars.
Kongwei also created the 2022 River Arts Fest poster. And just this year, she was invited to showcase not only her talent, but also her country of origin for the 2023 Memphis in May poster.
Malaysia is a rainforest. Rainforest, every morning you wake up, you will see that rainforest, the water drop on the ground. So that reflection is kind of reflect my past. So when you squint your eye, you will see that the city of the Twin Tower, famous Malaysia from the west. So the east side is more like the rainforest, very natural. So the hornbill bird is part of the represent the element. Our national flower is hibiscus.
In addition to public art, Kongwei is a fine artist. Her work shown in galleries around the world. Her current medium of choice, watercolor.
And so the watercolor that I use, and also as part of the kind of like Chinese idiom, 饮水思源, meaning that remember where's the original, the water you drink, where you come from. So that watercolor is kind of like open out the, you know, the abstract, like thinking sometimes you don't know who you are, but you think you know. Water is kind of like medium that you want to control. You always want to control, but end up is not control. So what is in between that control and not control that. Sometimes I don't even know that one stroke, it will form something, but there may be too much water. That means I have too much thought behind the painting.
Kong Wee is also a design artist for companies like Planned Parenthood, the University of Memphis, and Wiseacre, to name just a few. Sometimes immersing technology from that aspect of her work to create fine and public art. This summer arts garden outside the Brooks Museum of Art is a great example.
I spent so many times in Overton Park, so I want to do my best to create this art garden piece. So when I create this piece, I also inject some AR. You can scan, so the creature come out from the umbrella.
Whether her art is digital or three-dimensional, Kong Wee's Memphis masterpieces inspire us all to open our hearts and imagination.
For the piece, the bird is the hidden bird in the flower. But you see, as a first time, it's like, oh, that's a flower. But if you're using your heart to sing something, you will see even more the hidden message.
Kong Wee Peng makes us proud she's made Memphis home. Kim Clark, Action News 5.
Want you to take a look at this. This is the latest edition of Memphis Magazine, and it's the City Guide. And I always remark at how awesome the cover looks, how pretty, how beautiful. Check that out. The animation is spectacular, and you can see all the different various landmarks and staples across Memphis and the Mid-South right there. Let's bring in the editor of Memphis Magazine, the CEO of Contemporary Media, Anna Traverse Vogel, joining us on the Action News 5 digital desk. Anna, the City Guide is a big issue each and every year. How does this year compare to others? Good morning.
Hey, Andrew. Good morning. So great to see you. Yeah, we are just delighted with this year's City Guide. We're always trying to think about how to keep it fresh. This is actually the 40th year that we have been producing a City Guide. So it's an exciting issue for us just to think back on all the different incarnations that City Guide has had over those years. And this one especially just feels really special, really personal to us. The cover illustration is by Martha Park, who you may remember also illustrated our June cover for our medical Top Doctors issue. And for the cover, we chose to, as you said, just spotlight some of the different landmarks around town. Of course, there are so many more that we could have featured. But this actually ties into one of my favorite features in City Guide this year, sort of a new thing that we did this year, which was to explore different neighborhoods around the city. I don't know about you, but I feel like Memphis is such a city of neighborhoods that have their own distinct flavor and character. And so we just really wanted to dive into those and talk about what makes them so special. And so Martha illustrated some really beautiful landmarks that represent different neighborhoods. And the cover is a condensation of all of those, but there's much more inside as well.
I love it. I love it. I love the cover, and I love the neighborhoods that Memphis has. I think you're right. Each neighborhood has, its own personality, and it doesn't matter where you go in East Memphis or Midtown, and in the different neighborhoods, Evergreen and Central Gardens and Cooper Young. I mean, they're all very distinctive in their own right, and it's really enjoyable to see the various neighborhoods, and so that is a part of this year's City Guide. For someone who doesn't know or isn't familiar with Memphis Magazine, can you explain exactly what the City Guide is?
Sure. So the City Guide is, as the name might give away, sort of an introduction to all things Memphis, or a reintroduction for those of us who maybe have been here for longer. We, in the early days, used to refer to it as a newcomer's guide. And then we realized that actually most of our readers are people who are already living here and might just appreciate some more information. And so Yeah, we include features about all manner of Memphis culture, life in Memphis. So there's a story about Memphis music. And this year, Alex Green, our music writer, chose to focus on the hard rock coming out of Memphis. Not necessarily something that we might think of immediately, but there's actually a really long history here and a lot of great art coming out of here in that sphere. We also have a story about what's going on with the Metal Museum's move to Overton Park and what all that's going to look like. Of course, we have our annual Who's Who selections. So we each year in August do a rundown of the city's newsmakers and movers and shakers. So if you aren't familiar with the people who make Memphis the town that it is, that's at least a good place to start. Of course, there are, as always, with so much of what we do, so many more people that could be included, but this is a little over 100, and just try to give a great breadth of people who are working in different areas of the city. And there's really so much more as well in the City Guide. There's a story about sports, and Frank Murtaugh, our sports writer, talks about really things to be excited about and things to be grateful for in Memphis sports. I think it's been a year where there have been maybe a few things in the local sports community that have not been as happy, but we try to have really good vibes in our City Guide. So Frank wanted to put a spotlight on things that are going well, things to celebrate. So there's just so much like that.
Fantastic. I can't wait to read it. I'm sure it's in my mailbox today. I wanted to go back just to kind of look at the cover just a little bit and see if I can get all the different landmarks that you have there.
Yeah, it's a pop quiz.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking upper left. Is that the zoo or no?
Upper left is the Orange Mound Tower. So that's right. the building in Orange Mound that you can see from Lamar, that the good folks at Tone, the Black Arts Alliance, are working on a very long range plan to restore and turn into a cultural and creative hub.
I love it. Yes. And then the house next to it.
The house is just a house. So, when we were talking about this cover with Martha, we talked about the idea to spotlight different neighborhoods. And so one of the things that we decided to do was to include some quieter scenes that just gave a sense of what it might be like if you're driving through Memphis on a summer evening. And so we wanted to just give that quiet residential community feeling in that house, and then also the one on the bottom row. And then I'm sure the third piece of the top row.
Right. So Overton Park Shell. Then we have on the second line Graceland, the Overton Park entrance there, and then we have Ballet Memphis.
So that's actually Collage. So yeah, that is Collage Dance Collective that you see if you're coming in on Sam Cooper. And they have those really big like picture windows over at Collage, and it's a beautiful facility. Of course, we love Ballet Memphis too, but we included Collage as sort of a doorway into the Binghamton neighborhood. And again, when we talked about this with Martha, we talked about wanting to give a sense of the interplay between the outside and the inside. So you'll see little dancers in the windows there. And it's just this sense of like seeing the building, but also seeing the life that's happening within it. So I love the glow from those windows and the dancers.
Yeah, no, that's a great animation there. Of course, Stax Museum is right there on the bottom left, and then Gibson's Donuts. That's surprising to me.
Yeah, so we wanted to include something that felt very East Memphis, and we love that old neon sign that they have. And if you read the neighborhoods feature that Frank actually wrote on his neighborhood of East Memphis, one of the things that he talks about is stopping by and grabbing some donuts.
Fantastic. Well, you know, I mean, we all love Gibson's Donuts. What's not to love? So appreciate that. You know, Anna, it's fantastic. I can't wait. Is there anything else you wanted to mention before we let you go on the City Guide?
Just want to thank, you know, my team for their efforts. This is one of our bigger issues that we put out over the course of any given year. So it is a labor of love and maybe emphasis on the labor part. They worked really hard to put this together for our community and our readers. So just an amazing team of creatives and of salespeople who work to make independent local work like this possible. And I just am so grateful for all of them and to y'all for giving us the chance to spotlight it.
Absolutely. All right. Anna Traverse-Vogel, we appreciate you, editor of Memphis Magazine, CEO of Contemporary Media. Thanks so very much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for joining us here on ActionNews5.com, as well as the Action News 5 digital properties and Action News 5 Plus digital channels 5.5. All right, so impact forecast. We're talking more so the heat and humidity cranking up yet again. The heat stress feeling closer to 108 to 116. Here's the thing. Yesterday, we had a feels like temperature crest at 118 officially at Memphis International. And unfortunately, we'll probably do it again today. So take care of yourself in this heat if you do have to be outside for any prolonged period of time. Our friends who are working in construction, working sanitation, our police officers have to be outside for any length of time. Of course, the students playing in football and band practices here later on this afternoon. The heat is definitely going to be on. We'll top out close to 100 degrees. There might be a rogue shower to go along with that today amid a mixture of sunshine and clouds. I think more sun than not, as we've seen the last few days. 70s and 80s again to start off on your Friday. We'll do the whole process over again. A rogue shower here or there. Just more so the heat and humidity combination cranking up as we head through the afternoon hours for today. We'll drop down into the 70s and 80s for the afternoon hours, the morning hours of your Saturday. Notice to the north, some better rain chances sneaking in here. That is a front that is going to be working its way into the mid-south. That could kick up a couple of showers and storms. Still nearing 100 come Saturday. Still feeling closer to about 110 degrees, but maybe some of us getting some cooling relief from some showers and thunderstorms. We may have a few more showers and storms to contend with during the overnight period of your Saturday into Sunday. Another wave of showers and storms could be on the way as well, heading into Sunday night into early Monday. So when you look at it here, rain chances ahead. There might be, again, a rogue shower today, tomorrow. A little better chance could sneak in here on Saturday. That comes by way of that next front coming down the pipeline. And that next front will actually usher in some much cooler air from near 100 degrees that we get here today to the 80s for highs going into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. We'll take that and run with it. There's your front dropping into the area. New area of low pressure forming close to St. Louis as we head towards Saturday morning. That front gets a little closer to us. That will help to spark the few showers and storms that we could kick up on late Saturday into early Sunday. Notice behind that front kind of hangs around, lingers, and may have a little batch of showers and storms across northern Arkansas to get into the start of your Monday. That front then works its way farther south and ushers in the cooler, drier air in the wake of it, and we'll feel much more comfortable heading into the end of the work week. All right, here's a look at what's going on here across the tropics. And we've got a couple of different things to speak about here this morning. Of course, we've got the remnants of Emily, which is still working its way northward. That could try to regenerate here shortly. We also have Franklin, which is making its way north of Hispaniola this morning and could very well have some impacts for Bermuda here in the next couple of days. Notice the track here kind of goes cattywampus. As it gets caught up with a frontal boundary, they'll be moving offshore. That's the same front that's going to usher in the cooler air for us. So we'll stay offshore of the U.S. mainland, but it will likely bring some indirect impacts, surf and issues more so than anything else. Then in the Gulf of Mexico, okay? This is something that we're going to be watching here. This is actually not in the Gulf. It's a disturbance that is actually over Central America. This is what we call the Central American gyre. And sometimes you can get these gyres to get a little bit more concentrated, spawn off into the warmer waters of the Caribbean or the Gulf, and sometimes can get a tropical system to flare up with it. There has a medium chance of development here in the next couple of days, and you notice the track here through 7 days up into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Some of the modeling does suggest that this does develop into a tropical system. To what extent to be seen at this point, but most indicators also keep it to our south and towards the east. So places like the Florida Peninsula, Florida Panhandle, South Georgia into the Carolinas. That'll be something for them to watch in the next few days. For us, it's more so high pressure that dominates the weather as we head through much of next week. So here's a look at our 7-day forecast. 100 today, 102 tomorrow, nearing records today, tomorrow, even getting closer to record on Saturday. The record high on Saturday set back in 1943, 103 degrees. We'll fall short of that on Saturday, with a chance for a front to bring us a chance for a few showers and storms. We'll take whatever we can get. We need the rainfall at this point. Sunday into Monday, I think that rain chance 30% is a little highest for the morning hours of your Monday, then turning partly sunny. Then we should dry things out. Maybe a lingering shower overnight Monday into early Tuesday. It's all done, and then sunshine to return through the mid portion of next week. The 86 here in Memphis will translate to lower 80s in places like Dyersburg, as well as Friendship and down towards Brownsville as we head through your Wednesday. So some cooler weather is on the way, but we have to get past the searing summer heat. Take care of yourself in this heat. Being neighborly, checking in on folks who may not have adequate access to cooling relief, and just staying hydrated. Remember the mantra we have said the last couple of days: pre-hydrate, hydrate, rehydrate, as we continue with the searing heat at least through Saturday.
Okay, tensions were pretty high on the third day of the Tennessee special session in Nashville. People who want more gun control were upset and disappointed that the bills that have been so far passed through or tabled are not anywhere close to that. In fact, there are several bills that are still making its way through the Tennessee legislative session, and several more that could be up for discussion today because they are tabled at the moment. Action News 5's Bria Bolden has an update from Nashville.
The special session on public safety looks like it could come to an end by Thursday. As expected, nothing involving gun reform legislation will pass.
Shame! You should be ashamed of yourselves!
As the special legislative session begins to wind down, legislators met with unsatisfied constituents.
All we can do is tell our stories and tell them exactly as they happened. And it still felt like we weren't listened. As a Covenant mom, I think this is a really sad day for our state.
Melissa Alexander and other parents from the Covenant School came to speak in opposition of a House bill that allows retired on or off-duty police, retired or active military, and anyone with an enhanced handgun permit to use guns on school grounds without notification to schools or districts.
I am begging you, on behalf of my children who are forever traumatized and will forever have to live with the trauma of being hunted at school, to please pass no on this bill.
The bill passed the Civil Justice Committee 13-4 along party lines, but failed 9-9 in the Education Administration Committee. Memphis Representative Tory Harris says Wednesday was disturbing.
It's really hurtful to see people actually come up here with so much compassion, and we really want to see change, and we're not doing anything as the state of Tennessee. We represent all these individuals.
Without objection, this committee stands adjourned.
The Senate tabled at least 40 bills on school safety, guns, and mental health Wednesday. 4 bills made it to the Senate floor. One asking the TBI to create a human trafficking report. Another asks the TBI to update its criminal database every 72 hours instead of every 30 days. Another gives out free gun logs statewide, and the last bill pays for the special session.
Although it looks like an impasse right now, it really will be short-lived, and we ultimately will come together and figure out what bills we should pass to try to protect the public.
State Senator Brent Taylor of Memphis says the Senate has a different plan than the House for expectations this session, even after House Republicans called out GOP senators on social media, saying it must be exhausting sending so many bills to GenSub instead of doing the work people sent us here to do. Tabled bills could reappear at any time. Both the House and Senate have floor sessions tomorrow. We'll be there and keep you updated. Reporting from the state capitol in Nashville, Bria Bolden, Action News 5.
One person's in the hospital this morning after an overnight shooting. Memphis police say they responded to a shooting here 11:15 last night, Florida Street, South Parkway. Victim was taken to Regional 1. Memphis Police Department a month into a new effort to cut down on the number of vehicles in an impound lot. Here's video from January. You can see how packed the lot is. July 14th, MPD implemented a new policy to have more vehicles towed to private lots. And since that change, MPD says there's been a small reduction in the number of vehicles towed to impound, but Since January, there has been a 19% drop in the number of vehicles put into the lot. Former President Donald Trump is expected to turn himself over to Fulton County, Georgia later today. Action News 5's Washington Bureau reporter Peter Zampa has more of the arraignment set for later today.
For the fourth time in 6 months, former President Donald Trump expected to be arrested Thursday, this time on 13 Georgia state felony charges, the first of which violating the state's RICO law, alleging that Donald Trump participated in a criminal organization that tried to overturn lawful 2020 election results. The nearly 100-page indictment from District Attorney Fani Willis lays out 41 charges for 19 defendants, including Trump, Rudy Giuliani, his former chief of staff Mark Meadows, and various others. It centers around the Trump team's efforts in the wake of the 2020 general election, allegedly trying to overturn those election results. Trump and his allies have until noon Friday to turn themselves in Fulton County. He's expected to take a mugshot, as his co-defendants have. We know cameras will be allowed inside the courtroom once proceedings eventually begin. We also know Trump's bond is set for $200,000. Now, DA Willis says she wants this trial to begin within the next 6 months. Now, that's a quick turnaround that experts expect to be extended. And some of Trump's co-defendants are pushing for this case to move from state to federal jurisdiction. In Trump's other cases going on, we know that the hush money trial in New York is slated to begin next March. The documents trial in Florida slated to begin next May. Reporting in Washington, I'm Peter Zampa.
Well, Memphis Shelby County Schools has been named a Level 5 school district for the second year in a row. The distinction is about how much academic growth there is over time, and district leaders say this is a nice distinction, but there is a lot more to do. The district says this distinction identifies best practices and implements programs that meet the needs of their students and make informed decisions on where to focus their resources. Let's talk about the Memphis community of Westwood, because there is an artist there that's beautifying the 901 one mural at a time. Taylor Tucker has
At the intersection of Rains and Doubletree, you'll find a large and cheerful mural depicting the heritage of Westwood.
The pride that I take in doing my work is I can tell stories that people don't necessarily see when they come through some of these communities and they drive by. They don't kind of know the history of some of these places they're going through, and sometimes I'm able to show them.
Tony Hawkins is an urban storyteller. Dedicating his life to art, the Westwood artist uses his artistic talent to tell stories and messages.
Showcasing excitement, showcasing a rich history, and it's about being prideful.
This mural is the story of the Westwood Marching Band, a staple in the community.
They were going to some places that you just didn't see people from your neighborhood, at. And I can't tell you how many people have stopped their car and like, man, I was in this band. Is that me? I'll just tell everybody, yeah, that's you, that's you.
In fact, when I stopped by, one resident couldn't hold back his praise.
Love this mural, respect this mural, and please don't sabotage it with a lot of whole scribble, hibble, nobody want to see that. Look at this talent.
The Westwood mural is one of many pieces Hawkins has around the city. But as a Westwood native, he says putting artwork into his community serves an even greater purpose.
It's about a message. It's about telling a message. It's about showing an emotion. And it's about having that reinforcement so that when young people come and they see me as a young black person that's out here doing this work, this is my full-time job, it's a company, they see that and it's a positive image. I want them to get messages when they see this artwork.
In Memphis, Taylor Tucker.
In consumer news, identity thefts ramping up the efforts to rip you off. The Identity Theft Resource Center is tracking more data compromises in the second quarter of this year than any quarter previously tracked. Consumer investigator Rachel DePapa talked with an expert about what's going on and how you can protect yourself.
We're on pace to set a yearly record, and it's not good news. We're talking about the number of data compromises reported in this country. The Identity Theft Resource Center tracked 951 compromises in the second quarter of this year, which is higher than any previous quarter the organization's tracked. James Lee is the Chief Operating Officer of the ITRC. He says the numbers are worrisome and they mean you need to be more careful than ever.
Be very sure who you're giving your information to, because sometimes you don't need to share all the information that you do. And if you don't share it, then it can't be misused against you if a business loses control of it.
He says another thing you can do if you do have to give out information is to make it less useful to an identity thief.
You freeze your credit, because what criminals do today is they want to impersonate you. They want to open up new accounts by pretending to be you. So freeze your credit, and that makes sure that no one can use that information to open up a new credit account.
Credit freezes are different from credit monitoring. He says credit monitoring only tells you what happened. A credit freeze keeps it from happening. He says freeze your child's credit too. Their information is even more valuable than yours. It's new and never been used. And it often takes a long time for you to figure out there's a problem. I know we say this a lot, but you need to take the time to sit down and do this. You must make sure each and every account that you have has its own unique password. This is something he says you need to set aside time to do. With this, Watching Your Wallet, I'm Rachel DePompa.
Let's face it, it's going to be hot in Memphis throughout the summer. We know different ways to take care of ourselves, take care of our kids. What about our pets? We got to take care of them too. Let's bring in an expert to help us with that. We got Dr. Mondrian Contreras joining us on the Action News 5 digital desk. It says, Dr. Contreras, that you are a pumpkin veterinary expert. What does that mean? Good morning.
Good morning, guys. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, just that means that I give educational talks and I speak really about taking care of pets, and pumpkin pet insurance is just the means for which I do it by.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's talk about some of the warning signs that we can see when we're in this heat, we're with our dogs, perhaps cats as well, other pets, and something's not right. What kind of symptoms and signs are out there?
Oh, yeah. So first of all, just so owners understand, heat stroke is when basically the body temperature is elevated. Pets' temperatures are considered elevated when they exceed about 103 degrees. In practice, though, typically, again, heat stroke is really when temperatures are about 106, which usually is associated with high external environmental heat without previous signs of illness. Again, some of the things that can cause heat stroke, okay, many of these causes are things like leaving a dog in the car on a hot day, leaving dogs outside unattended, excessive exercise on a hot day, with dogs who are predisposed at developing heat stroke. And so some predisposing factors for dogs that develop heat stroke are things like brachiocephalic, smush-baked dog, obesity, tracheal collapse, with the narrowing windpipe, and arthritis. And so those are some of the things that, that we can see as far as dog heat stroke. What makes dogs more susceptible kind of to heat stroke, though, is again, dogs don't really have an efficient way of cooling themselves. All right, they don't sweat like humans do, and thus pets pant to cool themselves. Also, brachiocephalic breeds like our bulldogs, French English boxers, Boston Terriers, Pekingese, pugs, Lhasa Apsos have a higher risk, due to their anatomy. All right, and so they have these shorter nose and narrow nares and things like that, elongated soft palates, and smaller diameter tracheas, and so this can make breathing more difficult. And to get directly, yes, Steph, to your question. Some of the signs that we see of heat stroke, which is so important, is things like excessive panting. Okay, so very red gums, all right, dry gums, again, excessive drooling. It gets really, really thick. All right, and so increased heart rate, muscle tremors, and then we see gastrointestinal signs. We see things like vomiting, diarrhea, black tarry stool called melena, and some of these things can also be they can be disoriented.
That's interesting. Wow, you went through a lot there. How do we prevent heat stroke? And before you answer that, when you go through those signs that you just mentioned, doctor, what do we do? Like, how do we help them? How do we treat some of those symptoms?
Oh, excellent question. So again, if you suspect your dog is having, heat stroke, all right, suffering from heat stroke, again, take him to your veterinarian or to an emergency veterinary hospital right away. Once there, we can try to cool them down by pouring water on them and allowing basically to blow a fan on them to create convective cooling. Water should be cool, but not cold, all right? Because we don't actually want to lower their temperatures too quickly, okay? And this can cause actually perfusion issues and vasoconstriction. So again, we can use a cool towel also can be used on dogs to cool them down, but towels should be changed frequently so as not to trap heat. Again, other options include applying alcohol to the foot pads. This can help actually like dilate pores to increase perspiration. Again, in the hospital, we use IV fluids, we use sedatives and oxygen to help as well. And we wrap them also in ice packs to gradually lower our pet's temperature. Again, if your dog gets sick or hurt and needs to be seen to a vet, the cost of care can get expensive. A pet insurance plan is one way to help you afford veterinary care for your pet's needs. Pet insurance plans also typically cover unexpected accidents and illnesses and then reimburse you for a portion of your eligible veterinary expenses. And so some of the ways, again, that we can do to help prevent heat stroke are, again, a good rule of thumb is do not walk your dog during the hottest time of the day. Instead, try to walk your pet in the early morning and the late evenings to help prevent exposure to extreme temperatures. Make sure to always have water available for you and your pet anywhere you go. Do not leave your pet unattended outside in your car, and understand your pet's breed risks, okay? Brachycephalic, large breed dogs that we talked about. And predisposing factors include things like obesity, anxiety, arthritis, and cancer. That might put them at a greater risk, all right, for developing heat stroke. And be sure to monitor overactivity. Okay, at dog parks, they can get extremely excited, interacting with other pups, possibly be unattended for a minute, and thus develop heat stroke.
Some of the things that we're saying on the air, Dr. Contreras, is if you see your dog that, your dog looks kind of overheated, in addition to having water there, put maybe a cold towel or have a cold surface that it can lay on instead of putting something over it, because if you put something over some dogs, it can trap the heat. Is that a good rule of thumb? And what else can we do as prevention methods?
Excellent. Exactly. So again, heat stroke is not always obvious. Okay. And so again, it can be life threatening if not addressed promptly. Again, if you know the risk factors for, again, and implement precautions like these, like the cool towels, just cooling with cool water, not cold water. Again, these are some small, but things that we can help to recognize to help keep them. These small steps will help prevent the chances of your dog developing heat stroke. However, it's important that the signs of heat stroke, okay? And so again, the red gums, the panting, the thick, mucus, drooling, again, and what to do in emergency. And really that's to call your veterinarian and knowing where the closest emergency veterinarian is located in case your primary veterinarian is closed. Again, despite these efforts, it really only takes some minutes for dogs to develop heat stroke or seconds for them to have severe blistering sores on their foot pads on the hot pavement, okay? And so while we never want to think, again, of our pets of getting hurt or sick like this, chances are they'll face unexpected accidents or illness at some point in their life. An accident or illness, if they do happen, having pet insurance plan in place can really help give you a peace of mind knowing that it's easier to protect your pet's health when it matters most.
Okay, Dr. Mondrian Contreras, we appreciate you. Great tips, great advice, and great suggestions on ways to keep your pet safe this hot summer. Thanks very much.
I appreciate you guys having me.
We know in the month of August, many people are focused on back to school and back to school events, but the month of August is also Breastfeeding Awareness Month. And right now we want to talk with a registered nurse coordinator for lactation at Regional One Health. I'm joined by Christy Brooks now on the Action News 5 digital desk. Ms. Brooks, thanks so much for joining us. Can you tilt your camera down just a little bit? There's a little bit too much headroom there, if you don't mind. I'd like to talk to you about some of the reasons why it's important that women breastfeed. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? Thank you for having me. Some of the good reasons why moms should breastfeed is the benefits of breastfeeding. Breast milk provides antibodies that mama has been exposed to, which in turn helps with long-term issues with newborn illness, infant illness. It also helps reduce the risk of sudden infant death syndrome that is one of the number one causes of death in newborns within the first year. So moms who, the longer they breastfeed, the more benefits they're giving to their baby, the more antibodies and more protection against illnesses that they are providing for their babies. So it's really important that, especially with moms who are coming in with NICU babies, that we encourage them to pump and breastfeed to give that baby what we call liquid gold that has all the nutrients that that baby needs. And the breast milk changes to meet the needs of the baby. So it is something that is very special and very important for our babies.
Let me ask you this, Christy. What's the most common concern that you hear from new moms about breastfeeding? I know just with my interaction with my wife when my kids were born, sometimes it can be difficult for the baby and the mom to immediately have that connection. But what are some of the concerns that you hear from new moms?
Some of the concerns that we hear from new moms is when they have lack of support at home. I think one of the number one things to help a mom be supportive is to make sure that they have the support they need. And when they're having difficulties, say, you know, you got this. And this comes not just from family and staff. It takes a team to do that in our community to support these moms, not only when they're in the hospital, but as well as when they leave the hospital. Some of the other concerns that we hear is that I'm not going to have enough milk. I don't have enough milk. My baby's not getting enough. How do I know? So we make sure that we take time to educate the mom. We use a lot of visual aids and to help them. And we also pull in their support person and let them know the importance of breastfeeding and why it's important to help support mom breastfeed. Moms make, I can just show you a little bit. This is called colostrum. It's liquid gold, and this is what moms use usually make in the first week. And so we show this in comparison to, this is a little belly ball that shows how big mom's baby's belly is. So in comparison, they make enough to feed the baby with that little bitty stomach. So I think moms sometimes feel like that they are supposed to make like a lot of milk when they first come in. And it's a process. It's called supply and demand. In order to get your body to make milk, you have to demand your body to make milk. So it's so important to get that mom breastfeeding on a regular basis. And if the mom is separated and the baby goes to the NICU, to get them pumping very early to provide breast milk for their newborn, especially our tiny newborns that are born less than 1,500 grams. That helps with their gut, and that's very important.
You know, Christy, I appreciate the visuals there. That's very revealing, I'm sure, to a lot of people out there. Is there any help for new moms if they're having trouble breastfeeding? I know that there is plenty of help, but can you just rattle off maybe a couple things here?
Yes, absolutely. Region 1 Health actually has a lactation team that is pretty great. They can call and we can set up outpatient services if we need to there. There's also the Tennessee Breastfeeding Hotline that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's resources through WIC. There's resources through Women'sHealth.gov. BSTARS, which is a wonderful group that is out there to support women of color. We have the Shelby County Breastfeeding Coalition. There are so many more resources out there for breastfeeding moms now than there ever was before in the past. So there's a lot of opportunities for moms to call and say, hey, I just need some help, and we can be there for them.
What about working moms? You know, that is a concern because certainly there's some working moms out there that want to breastfeed their babies. What recommendations do you suggest?
With breastfeeding your babies and going back to work, there are Tennessee laws, and there are laws all over the United States that have passed, and it's called the pumping law, and to where I encourage moms to talk to their employers because there are opportunities there for moms to pump at work or even breastfeed if it's allowed, you know, if that baby can come in and see mom. So being very supportive in the workplace, and I challenge all the workplaces to make sure that they have the availability of an area for these moms to pump and to encourage them and to support them. Because in the long run of things, as long as you breastfeed, the longer you breastfeed, the more antibodies you're providing your baby, the less sicknesses your baby has throughout its lifetime, which means moms return to work quicker. Moms are not leaving work as much to take their babies to the doctor because they're sick. So it ends up being a very big benefit overall in the long scheme of things as well, and supporting and helping moms to breastfeed.
So, there's a lot that goes into how long mothers should breastfeed. Is there one kind of level that generally you tell moms how long they should breastfeed? And what about switching between bottle feeding and breastfeeding, or at least supplementing with bottle feeding with those babies that are hungry? I know my son was always hungry, and we had to supplement it with bottle feeding.
Right. What we tell moms is that we always want to make sure that they start breastfeeding at first. Breastfeeding is a learned process, even though it's a natural process. So the more you breastfeed, the more you're telling your body to make milk. So it's very important that you get that baby on the breast to help with that breast milk, and reach out for lactation services or help in the community of the different support systems out there to help make sure that you're positioned well. Babies get enough milk and they're breastfeeding as they need to be, and that mom feels comfortable with breastfeeding, and that her support people also are aware and educated about breastfeeding. Number one reason why a lot of moms do not successfully breastfeed for a long period of time is because of support. It is recommended to breastfeed for at least 6 months. This comes from the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, WHO. All the evidence shows that breastfeeding, the longer you breastfeed, the more benefits for baby and mom.
This has been very informative. And, we have thousands of people that watch us each and every morning here, Christy, on the Action News 5 digital desk. Anything else before we let you go when it comes to Breastfeeding Awareness Month, what new moms should expect when it comes to breastfeeding?
Yeah, so with National Breastfeeding Month, what moms should expect when they come in is that we have a lot of lactation here, and there is a lot more resources available in our communities than there have been before, and we are going to even see that increase. I encourage them to ask questions, to be patient, to get the help that they need, especially before they leave the hospital and even afterwards, to be successful. Sometimes it can be a struggle. So in those first few days, we want to make sure that moms feel comfortable when they leave the hospital and even after they go home to continue to breastfeed.
All right, Christy Brooks, registered nurse coordinator for lactation at Regional One Health. We appreciate your insight this morning. Very helpful. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Hey, thanks for joining us here on ActionNews5.com, as well as the Action News 5 digital properties and Action News 5 Plus digital channels 5.5. All right, so impact forecast. We're talking more so the heat and humidity cranking up yet again. The heat stress feeling closer to 108 to 116. Here's the thing. Yesterday, we had a feels like temperature crest at 118 officially at Memphis International. And unfortunately, we'll probably do it again today. So take care of yourself in this heat if you do have to be outside for any prolonged period of time. Our friends who are working in construction, working sanitation, our police officers have to be outside for any length of time. Of course, the students playing in football and band practices here later on this afternoon. The heat is definitely going to be on. We'll top out close to 100 degrees. There might be a rogue shower to go along with that today amid a mixture of sunshine and clouds. I think more sun than not, as we've seen the last few days. 70s and 80s again to start off on your Friday. We'll do the whole process over again. A rogue shower here or there. Just more so the heat and humidity combination cranking up as we head through the afternoon hours for today. We'll drop down into the 70s and 80s for the afternoon hours, the morning hours of your Saturday. Notice to the north, some better rain chances sneaking in here. That is a front that is going to be working its way into the mid-south. That could kick up a couple of showers and storms. Still nearing 100 come Saturday. Still feeling closer to about 110 degrees, but maybe some of us getting some cooling relief from some showers and thunderstorms. We may have a few more showers and storms to contend with during the overnight period of your Saturday into Sunday. Another wave of showers and storms could be on the way as well, heading into Sunday night into early Monday. So when you look at it here, rain chances ahead. There might be, again, a rogue shower today, tomorrow. A little better chance could sneak in here on Saturday. That comes by way of that next front coming down the pipeline. And that next front will actually usher in some much cooler air from near 100 degrees that we get here today to the 80s for highs going into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. We'll take that and run with it. There's your front dropping into the area. New area of low pressure forming close to St. Louis as we head towards Saturday morning. That front gets a little closer to us. That will help to spark the few showers and storms that we could kick up on late Saturday into early Sunday. Notice behind that front kind of hangs around, lingers, and may have a little batch of showers and storms across northern Arkansas to get into the start of your Monday. That front then works its way farther south and ushers in the cooler, drier air in the wake of it, and we'll feel much more comfortable heading into the end of the work week. All right, here's a look at what's going on here across the tropics. And we've got a couple of different things to speak about here this morning. Of course, we've got the remnants of Emily, which is still working its way northward. That could try to regenerate here shortly. We also have Franklin, which is making its way north of Hispaniola this morning and could very well have some impacts for Bermuda here in the next couple of days. Notice the track here kind of goes cattywampus. As it gets caught up with a frontal boundary, they'll be moving offshore. That's the same front that's going to usher in the cooler air for us. So we'll stay offshore of the U.S. mainland, but it will likely bring some indirect impacts, surf and issues more so than anything else. Then in the Gulf of Mexico, okay? This is something that we're going to be watching here. This is actually not in the Gulf. It's a disturbance that is actually over Central America. This is what we call the Central American gyre. And sometimes you can get these gyres to get a little bit more concentrated, spawn off into the warmer waters of the Caribbean or the Gulf, and sometimes can get a tropical system to flare up with it. There has a medium chance of development here in the next couple of days, and you notice the track here through 7 days up into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Some of the modeling does suggest that this does develop into a tropical system. To what extent to be seen at this point, but most indicators also keep it to our south and towards the east. So places like the Florida Peninsula, Florida Panhandle, South Georgia, into the Carolinas. That'll be something for them to watch in the next few days. For us, it's more so high pressure that dominates the weather as we head through much of next week. So here's a look at our 7-day forecast. 100 today, 102 tomorrow, nearing records today, tomorrow, even getting closer to record on Saturday. The record high on Saturday, set back in 1943, 103 degrees. We'll fall short of that on Saturday, with a chance for a front to bring us a chance for a few showers and storms. We'll take whatever we can get. We need the rainfall at this point. Sunday into Monday, I think that rain chance 30% is a little highest for the morning hours of your Monday, then turning partly sunny. Then we should dry things out. Maybe a lingering shower overnight Monday into early Tuesday. It's all done, and then sunshine to return through the mid portion of next week. The 86 here in Memphis will translate to lower 80s in places like Dyersburg, as well as Friendship and down towards Brownsville as we head through your Wednesday. So some cooler weather is on the way, but we have to get past the searing summer heat. Take care of yourself in this heat. Being neighborly, checking in on folks who may not have adequate access to cooling relief, and just staying hydrated. Remember the mantra we have said the last couple of days: pre-hydrate, hydrate, rehydrate, as we continue with the searing heat at least through Saturday.
Okay, college costs. We know it continues to rise. Current high school students thinking more strategically than their predecessors when it comes to their education. We're joined now by Corey Latham. He's the director of the 529 College Savings Fidelity Investments to talk about some new data out there. Fidelity ran this survey and really talked about different things with what high school students are considering, their choices, and that sort of thing. Corey, I appreciate you joining us. Let's talk about what high school students are doing right now with regards to your study and how they're being a little bit more strategic. Is that the right word?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's a really key important thing, is that we do see that high school students are being more strategic. But they're changing their approach on the college decision-making process. And what they're doing is they're prioritizing a potential career path and their own financial future. You know, despite declines in college enrollment, Fidelity study found that 2 in 3 respondents still feel the value of college is worth the cost. And that next wave of college students really have a FOLO, or a fear of losing out on that investment. So as a result, they're prioritizing smart money moves as they narrow down those college choices.
Okay, so why are students being more intentional about their college choices? Because we see that in your study, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we found two key areas as to why they're doing that. The first is they value better employment opportunities. And the second is for their own financial security. So that's why they're really being smart about how it is that they get there. They're also learning from their predecessors, right? A really interesting fact was that the study found 7 in 10 recent college graduates claimed they'd reconsider what they studied in college to secure a better return on that college investment. And, you know, with this next wave of college students that are applying at a time when there's the student debt crisis, inflation, concerns about job security, you know, it's not surprising to see them embrace thoughtful decision-making as they narrow down those college choices.
What about some key factors like that students and parents should consider when they plan for college and for post-college expenses? Because those are rising as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So while we did find that Gen Z is thinking more strategically, there is also a big opportunity for them to brush up on financial knowledge. So a really interesting fact, right, is that about a quarter of high school students think that 1 year of college or higher education costs $5,000 or less. And how they came up with that was simply by guessing. They didn't use a college calculator or any kind of a planning tool. You know, 63% do say they're better prepared to pay for college than their parents, you know, but more than half don't know how much of their own expenses they'll need to pay for. You know, and finally, 6 in 10 high school students say they won't be able to afford college without the help of student loans, you know, but more than a third of them don't know how long it's going to take to pay them back.
Interesting. Okay, so, you know, there's a lot that is going through the minds of college students and parents of prospective college students, I should say, high school seniors, that sort of thing. What about the mistakes, maybe the misconceptions that people might have, Corey?
Yeah, so there's absolutely a lot of them out there, and it's obviously a really big choice, choosing the college and understanding what you're going to do kind of for that post-secondary education, right? But the best news is the way that you can counteract a lot of that, it's simply just starting the conversation about money and saving for college. And really, it's never too early to have those conversations. But other things that you want to be able to do are you start your savings journey as early as possible. But just because you can't start early doesn't mean you shouldn't start, because anything that you save now is less that you're going to have to pay tomorrow. Right? You can also take advantage of things like a 529 account. You know, that's a tax advantage account that can help make saving for college even easier with those tax advantages that it has. And also at Fidelity, there's a number of resources to help navigate that college planning and savings journey together, including tools, college cost calculators, articles, webinars, really about how to approach the money conversation, as well as understanding the basics of a 529 account.
Yeah, 529s are so great. I got 2 kids in college right now, and the 529 is coming in the clutch. So absolutely something that people should really consider if their kids are getting ready for college, or even if they're born. You know, we started ours when our kids were born. We started a long time ago, so that was also something to take advantage of. Where can people go for more information? This has been a very interesting conversation, Corey. I know we have thousands of viewers that are watching. Where can they find more information online?
Yeah, thank you. So the best place to go would be fidelity.com/collegehelp.
Okay, Corey Latham, Head of 529 College Savings for Fidelity Investments. We really appreciate your time this morning. Great conversation, always something to be mindful of if you have a kid that's about to go to college or at least considering it. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Perhaps you've heard about Chalkbeat. They cover a lot of education issues. It's a nonprofit news organization committed to covering education. And there is a Chalkbeat affiliation in Tennessee. And they've written an article about Memphis Shelby County schools as the new year has begun. And the person who wrote that article is joining us right now on the Action News 5 digital desk, Laura Testino. She wrote an article about the 5 key issues facing Memphis and Shelby County schools as the new year begins. Laura, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. Tell us just an overview of this article. I know a lot of times when we cover stuff as reporters, sometimes we learn some things during the news gathering process. Was there anything that came out of the news gathering process that you learned as a reporter? Good morning.
Sure. Yeah. Good morning. Thanks for having me. So 5 key issues found for this school year covered in the story are the superintendent search, which is not going to be surprising to anybody who has been watching the news or watching the district this year. Then some other things that we'll also want to pay attention to are the district's infrastructure plan. So what buildings are going to potentially be consolidated in future years, which buildings might be new. That, of course, has been a hot topic as the county commission considered funding for the district. Third, we've got obviously academics. So coming out of COVID, reading scores, while they're under more scrutiny this year through state laws, they have rebounded more to pre-pandemic levels than math scores have. And particularly for middle schoolers, math is still one of the areas that have sustained the most learning loss from COVID. We've also got how the district is funded. So all of those one-time federal relief dollars from the pandemic are going to go away at the end of this school year. So how the district considers what it manages out of that. And then the last key issue that the article looks at is just social, emotional health for children and all of those factors outside of school that we often talk about, especially in places like Memphis, where there's a high rate of children in poverty. And so what are those issues that are making it more difficult for children to have success in the school building, and what is the district doing to either offer supports themselves or connect families and students to those supports that exist in the community?
That's a very thorough list, Laura, I gotta say, and you know, the superintendent, I've often had the discussion with anyone who will talk to me about it that, you know, if you look at Memphis and Shelby County as a whole, probably one of the top, if not the top position, is the most important position that can make the most impact is the superintendent of Memphis Shelby County Schools. I mean, they could have an amazing impact, or it can be a very detrimental impact. And the search process has, gosh, it's actually been an embarrassment for a while for so many people. Based upon your news gathering, is there a light at the end of the tunnel with all that?
Yeah, so I think, you know, round one, as I am calling this, of the search, which everyone watched unfold last year, nobody needs a rehash to catch up there. There's not a new superintendent yet. The second round, though, is going according to plan. So in June, the day after current interim superintendent signed a contract for this upcoming school year to remain interim under the condition that she would not be a finalist for the role. So we won't see her on the applicant list again. She is decidedly in the role temporarily at this point. The district, or excuse me, the school board members got together with Hazard Young Attia and Associates, a search firm, and they sat down and they talked about what would happen next. A lot of what they talked about was a reflection of the 3 retreats that the board gathered for during the summer to realign on this and have a lot of the conversations that a lot of them, you know, admitted and said, you know, we should have had these conversations first. They talked through those things. They made sure that they were on the same page about what the application would look like. There's a public records win in there for the journalists looking out that the applications that people make will be made public record, which is a requirement of Tennessee law. So we'll know who those applicants are. And it's following the timeline that was set out. So there was initially a timeline at that point that said, okay, the first thing that we're going to do is on August 1st, we are going to post the application online on the HYA, the search firm's website, and that happened. So far, we're going to according to plan, which if the timeline continues to move as it is supposed to, the applications will close in November. In between November and February will be interviews and a selection process. So around February, we will know who the next superintendent will be, and depending on their availability, they might have some transition into the role with a firm start date of July 1st, but there might be some availability for them to overlap with current interim superintendent Williams.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope that they adhere to that timeline, because that's so important. And another thing that's important that really comes from the top down is the academic success that you highlighted. I mean, that is so paramount, you know, and almost as important as any list of those 5, you know, key findings or the key issues is academic success and rising from where they are now and where they were in the pandemic time period, because that's still, I mean, from all intents and purposes, the pandemic era really hurt Memphis Shelby County schools because they went 100% online. Real quick, let's talk, Laura, about how ways that how people can find this article online.
Sure. So all of Chalkbeat's reports are listed at Chalkbeat, so CHALKBEAT.org. When you hit the homepage, you can just select from Communities Tennessee, and this story is on that homepage.
Is there anything else you want to mention, you know, without giving the article away, that you wanted to talk about before we let you go?
Sure. I think, you know, maybe just as far as parents go, of course, you know, paying attention to your students, teachers and school announcements, but there's probably going to be a lot of community meetings upcoming as the district considers this facilities plan that they'll make. And so I, you know, would just encourage you to look for those as well, so that you can have a voice in what the future of your student's school building might be like.
Okay, Laura Testino with Chalkbeat Tennessee. We appreciate your time. Great article. Really dives deep into the issues and the key takeaways coming up for Memphis Shelby County Schools. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Baby items recalled years ago remain in homes all across the country, and our national investigative team finds that they're also available for sale online right now. Part of the problem, critics say, is the manufacturers aren't forced to aggressively tell the public when their products are dangerous or should be fixed or even thrown away. Here's national investigative reporter Lee Zurich with Defective Recall.
At 3 months old, PJ Matson uttered his first words to his parents.
I love you.
The only words he would ever say. Weeks after this video was taken, PJ's parents placed him in an incline sleeper where he slept every night since birth. When his father went to wake him up in the morning, PJ was lifeless.
He was in an inclined bassinet, and he was able to roll over in it because of how narrow it was, and he was on his stomach, and mixed with the incline and him being on, you know, his stomach, he wasn't able to breathe, and he passed away that way from being in the bassinet.
His parents had no idea a government watchdog agency, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, or CPSC, hired an independent doctor to review these products for possible danger. The month before PJ died, that doctor declared no inclined sleep products are safe, warning the design has an increased risk for suffocation because babies can roll and aren't able to self-correct. In 2019, the CPSC and manufacturers of 2 products recalled the products, issuing news releases. But the recalls of the Kids 2 rocking sleepers and the Fisher-Price Rock and Play didn't stop the deaths. 6 months after the government and product maker issued the recall, PJ died.
If you would have known about the recall, PJ could be alive right now.
He would absolutely still be here. We would not have used it. We would have thrown it away.
So the message didn't reach you?
No.
And if they would have spent more time and attention, maybe even money, to get that recall product, that it was recalled out, then, you know, we would have, me and probably a bunch of other parents would have stopped using it if we would have heard about it.
In fact, at least 4 babies died after the recall, which prompted the federal government and Kids 2 to re-announce the recall in January. Fisher-Price, too, re-announced its recall, reporting 8 deaths after its first warning. According to our analysis of government data, since 2000, the Consumer Product Safety Commission has had to re-announce recalls of at least 46 products because the original alert didn't reach enough consumers.
Companies do spend a tremendous amount of time to market products to get them into consumers' home. They should be spending as much money if they find out that there is a defective product to get them out of consumers' homes and keep families safe.
Both Kids 2 and Fisher-Price declined our request for a comment. Both companies posted about the original recall on their Facebook pages and Twitter feeds, but neither company has mentioned the re-announcement of the recall on their social media channels. They did on their company websites. And the way laws are written, the federal government can't force these companies to do more, to do a better job alerting consumers.
There have been products that have been recalled, and after the recall, people have died.
That is true.
I mean, that's unacceptable.
I think that those are exactly the things we're trying to prevent by pushing companies to get the announcements out quickly and to be able to provide an adequate recall.
In fact, we were able to find these recalled products online and buy them. Here's a Fisher-Price Rock and Play we purchased in December. Since 2010, at least 100 infants have died in one just like this.
We were able to buy a Fisher-Price Rock and Play online easily. We got it delivered to us.
Yeah, I mean that's just wrong. I mean we need to be able to set up a system where consumers are aware of these risks and have the incentive to take advantage of them.
It's illegal to sell recalled products, but we bought the products on Facebook Marketplace. Meta is aware of these types of sales, but we've found dozens available, despite the company telling us it takes the issue seriously and removes listings when it finds them.
You should never have seen that product on their marketplace. They're in a position where they can see what's going up on their marketplace before it gets to the public, and that's the best time to step in and say, you can't post that. There's a recall on it.
CPSC Chairman Alexander Hohensaurek even wrote to Meta asking them twice to remove incline sleepers. But just a month after his most recent plea, we bought a Kids 2 rocking sleeper from a seller in Ohio. This sleeper similar to the one little PJ was in.
I think there needs to be stricter regulations on things like that, like Facebook Marketplace trying to sell it. It needs to be out there, and people just need to take it serious, because people don't take it serious. Because like my mom said, they say it won't happen to me, or I used it with my kids, they were fine, but it takes one time for something bad to happen, and you just never, you don't know what's gonna happen.
During our interview, Lydia Calvaca held her granddaughter Ryan tight.
I have a hole in my heart. Not a day goes by that I don't think of my grandson. Not a day.
When not in her arms, she checks on every one of Ryan's deep breaths. She does the same thing with her granddaughter Dylan, frightened she might lose another baby to a defective product.
Yes, I'm scared. I can't sleep. She doesn't know this, I've never told her. But with Dylan and with Ryan, I'm afraid to sleep. I'm afraid something that happens only to other people is gonna happen again, you know? So I watch them like a hawk. My fiance watches them. They are never unattended. It sucks, because I wanna be able to enjoy them the way I enjoyed PJ, without worrying and being nervous that something's gonna happen. And this incident has taken that away from me. It's taken some of my joy for my other grandchildren away from me, and that angers me.
Tough story right there, very tough, and certainly it's something that will ignite more discussion on the issue of Facebook Marketplace, more regulation, and what to do with defective baby furniture and the like. All right, some other stories that we're following at this hour. One is coming from something that happened in North Memphis. Shots fired at a train conductor, thousands of dollars worth of Nikes stolen from a boxcar. This was in Chelsea, North Memphis, near Panama and Chelsea. Memphis police released new information about the incident, and Tavarius Haywood has details. Take a look.
Reports of shots fired at train conductors Tuesday night around 10:30. According to a Memphis police affidavit, officers were called to the intersection of Panama Street and Chelsea Avenue, where they saw 20 to 30 vehicles. Police say several people were raiding boxcars that were stopped on the track. Police turned on their lights and the suspects scattered. Officers chased several of them and say one even tossed a handgun during a foot chase. That suspect got away, but officers secured the gun. They say it was loaded with a full magazine and had one in the chamber. Because there were so many folks allegedly stealing from the boxcars, police called in air support to find them, but to no luck. After all of that chaos, officers found several open boxes of Nike shoes, bolt cutters, suspect cell phones, and a gun. There are pictures floating around social media selling the very shoes police say were stolen from the boxcars for more than $200.
Okay, AM radio could be a thing of the past in some vehicles. That could have unintended consequences, though, when it comes to getting the word out about emergencies and alerts. Justin Glick reports there's a push now to require AM radio in cars. Take a look.
At the North Dakota Department of Emergency Services, Homeland Security Director Darren Hansen is busy preparing for future emergencies using AM radio.
To put out alerts like our emergency alert system or on the emergency alert system, and it's a critical piece of what we do. It fills a nice gap between what we can put out online and through cell phones.
Unlimited talk text. Hansen says a lot of rural and elderly people rely on AM for important emergency and weather information. Some car manufacturers recently announced plans to do away with AM or have already pulled the plug. Senator John Hoeven says he believes keeping AM is a common sense safety issue.
Those messages go out when we have a disaster or when there's a warning of some kind on AM radio, and somebody might not know about a disaster or some other risk if they don't have that AM radio available.
The Homeland Security Director says if AM radio were to completely shut off like this, it would affect how his department gets the important information out to listeners.
If we get into a situation where any type of large disaster, such as a cyber incident or an incident where even a lot of people start using that cellular network, that's probably the only way we're going to be able to get that alert out.
After hearing about what car manufacturers were planning, members of Congress decided to bring up a bipartisan bill that will require all new motor vehicles to make AM radio standard.
I think we're going to get it through. We're adding a lot of sponsors in the Senate. I think we can get it done before year end. And I think they're up to about 140 sponsors in the House as well.
Hansen says he believes AM radio still has a place in the modern world, even though there is emerging technology, because some people can't afford the latest gadgets. He says it's a matter of equity.
We can't allow them to be without the services that they rely on to be warned when a terrible disaster is coming or when they need to be alerted.
Until something major is decided on this front, Hansen and his team will continue to be ready to send out that next alert over the airwaves to AM radio listeners.
Hey, thanks for joining us here on ActionNews5.com, as well as the Action News 5 digital properties and Action News 5 Plus digital channels 5.5. All right, so impact forecast. We're talking more so the heat and humidity cranking up yet again. The heat stress feeling closer to 108 to 116. Here's the thing. Yesterday, we had a feels like temperature crest at 118 officially at Memphis International. And unfortunately, we'll probably do it again today. So take care of yourself in this heat if you do have to be outside for any prolonged period of time. Our friends who are working in construction, working sanitation, our police officers have to be outside for any length of time. Of course, the students playing in football and band practices here later on this afternoon. The heat is definitely going to be on. We'll top out close to 100 degrees. There might be a rogue shower to go along with that today amid a mixture of sunshine and clouds. I think more sun than not, as we've seen the last few days. 70s and 80s again to start off on your Friday. We'll do the whole process over again. A rogue shower here or there. Just more so the heat and humidity combination cranking up as we head through the afternoon hours for today. We'll drop down into the 70s and 80s for the afternoon hours, the morning hours of your Saturday. Notice to the north, some better rain chances sneaking in here. That is a front that is going to be working its way into the mid-south. That could kick up a couple of showers and storms. Still nearing 100 come Saturday. Still feeling closer to about 110 degrees, but maybe some of us getting some cooling relief from some showers and thunderstorms. We may have a few more showers and storms to contend with during the overnight period of your Saturday into Sunday. Another wave of showers and storms could be on the way as well, heading into Sunday night into early Monday. So when you look at it here, rain chances ahead. There might be, again, a rogue shower today, tomorrow. A little better chance could sneak in here on Saturday. That comes by way of that next front coming down the pipeline. And that next front will actually usher in some much cooler air from near 100 degrees that we get here today to the 80s for highs going into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. We'll take that and run with it. There's your front dropping into the area. New area of low pressure forming close to St. Louis as we head towards Saturday morning. That front gets a little closer to us. That will help to spark the few showers and storms that we could kick up on late Saturday into early Sunday. Notice behind that front kind of hangs around, lingers, and may have a little batch of showers and storms across northern Arkansas to get into the start of your Monday. That front then works its way farther south and ushers in the cooler, drier air in the wake of it, and we'll feel much more comfortable heading into the end of the work week. All right, here's a look at what's going on here across the tropics. And we've got a couple of different things to speak about here this morning. Of course, we've got the remnants of Emily, which is still working its way northward. That could try to regenerate here shortly. We also have Franklin, which is making its way north of Hispaniola this morning and could very well have some impacts for Bermuda here in the next couple of days. Notice the track here kind of goes cattywampus. As it gets caught up with a frontal boundary, they'll be moving offshore. That's the same front that's going to usher in the cooler air for us. So it'll stay offshore of the U.S. mainland, but it will likely bring some indirect impacts, surf and issues more so than anything else. Then in the Gulf of Mexico, okay? This is something that we're going to be watching here. This is actually not in the Gulf. It's a disturbance that is actually over Central America. This is what we call the Central American gyre. And sometimes you can get these gyres to get a little bit more concentrated, spawn off into the warmer waters of the Caribbean or the Gulf, and sometimes can get a tropical system to flare up with it. There has a medium chance of development here in the next couple of days, and you notice the track here through 7 days up into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Some of the modeling does suggest that this does develop into a tropical system. To what extent to be seen at this point, but most indicators also keep it to our south and towards the east. So places like the Florida Peninsula, Florida Panhandle, South Georgia, into the Carolinas. That'll be something for them to watch in the next few days. For us, it's more so high pressure that dominates the weather as we head through much of next week. So here's a look at our 7-day forecast. 100 today, 102 tomorrow, nearing records today, tomorrow, even getting closer to record on Saturday. The record high on Saturday, set back in 1943, 103 degrees. We'll fall short of that on Saturday, with a chance for a front to bring us a chance for a few showers and storms. We'll take whatever we can get. We need the rainfall at this point. Sunday into Monday, I think that rain chance 30% is a little highest for the morning hours of your Monday, then turning partly sunny. Then we should dry things out. Maybe a lingering shower overnight Monday into early Tuesday. It's all done, and then sunshine to return through the mid portion of next week. The 86 here in Memphis will translate to lower 80s in places like Dyersburg, as well as Friendship and down towards Brownsville as we head through your Wednesday. So some cooler weather is on the way, but we have to get past the searing summer heat. Take care of yourself in this heat. Being neighborly, checking in on folks who may not have adequate access to cooling relief, and just staying hydrated. Remember the mantra we have said the last couple of days: pre-hydrate, hydrate, rehydrate, as we continue with the searing heat at least through Saturday.
Well, life is full of transitions, isn't it? I mean, you think about it. Throughout your life, no matter what season, big or small, we're constantly going through transitions. Some are planned, others are unexpected. No matter how they happen, it can be challenging for us. It could be anything from getting married, moving to a new house, a new job, thinking about retirement, going into retirement. So how do we handle this the best way possible? Let's bring in someone, an expert, who can really kind of help us with life's transition. I'm joined now by licensed professional counselor Elizabeth Drain. She's with Methodist Le Bonheur Healthcare to talk more about life's transitions and how to handle them. If you had the best piece of advice, Elizabeth, the number one piece of advice when people are going through transitions, what would it be first and foremost? Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
First, most importantly, I would like to say it's very important to understand that different transitions, everyone handles differently, depending on one's personality, coping mechanism, support system. All of those things make a difference in terms of how you handle life transitions. However, I would like to discuss 8 coping strategies that can be implemented daily to assist you in navigating these challenges. Okay, so the first one I would say, accept change as a normal part of life. Transitions in life are the easiest for those who possess this attitude. I would also recommend identifying and express your feelings. While trying to push away feelings or fear and anxiety is normal, acknowledging them can help you get over them faster and make them real by writing them down and taking the time to reflect on them. You can reduce these influences over you by acknowledging and expressing these emotions.
So let me ask you what you said off the first one, Elizabeth. You mentioned change is a normal part of life. There are so many people out there that says, I don't like change. I like doing what I'm doing right now. I don't want to change. Where do people have the most problems when it comes to transitions? Is it something that they're dealing with before the transition, the thoughts in their head before actually doing it, or is it something else?
I would say it's probably a combination of all of those things. We're most comfortable with things that we're familiar with. And so when life throws us what I would call change or curveballs, things that we were not expecting, then it takes us out of our comfort zone. And so now we're having challenges navigating the change because it's unfamiliar to us. So absolutely.
I know you mentioned 8 coping strategies, and I want you to continue with that. But I do want to have a little dialogue here because I find it interesting that you're right. I mean, like, we're all going through transitions. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, raising children, of course, and buying a house, getting married, moving to a new city, starting a new job. I mean, everyone's going through that. And you mentioned, right after accepting the fact that there's going to be change in your life, identifying your feelings and expressing your feelings. I mean, it's so important to just, understand why you're feeling the way that you feel, right?
Absolutely. When you can understand and process how you're feeling, why you're feeling those that way, then it makes it a little bit easier for you to cope or plan ahead and problem solve around those feelings that you're having. And as I mentioned, writing those feelings down gives you the opportunity to reflect on them. Oftentimes when we're thinking about things, we just reminisce over and over and over, and it just kind of stays stuck in our head. So when we put it on paper, it kind of makes things real, and it gives us the opportunity to process what we're thinking and not just think about it.
I totally agree. So continue on with your list of 8 coping strategies.
Okay, so the third one would be focus on the payoff. Consider the lesson you have taken away from previous transitions. Recall the steps you took and what you learned and achieved at each stage, such as changes can offer, useful time to self-reflect, learning to overcome fears and dealing with uncertainty. So just kind of thinking about the payoff, can be helpful as well. Number 4, I would say kind of what we just spoke about. Expect to be uncomfortable. A time of transition can be confusing. It is a normal feeling to feel insecure and anxious, but these feelings are part of the process and they will pass. Absolutely. Number 5, I think it's a really big one. stay sober. It is not a good idea to use alcohol or drugs at this difficult and confusing time. It might make things even more challenging. So I think it's very important to manage, your alcohol consumption or drug use during this time.
Yeah, staying sober. I want to hit on that too, because a lot of times people are so nervous. They're concerned about the transition, wanting it to go so well. They're nervous. They might have a drink or two or three, and suddenly they're not sober, and so their thinking is a little bit off base. But staying sober is so important in these critical transitions. I love that. And then expecting it to be uncomfortable. I always tell people, including my kids, I always tell them, hey, look, that first year of being in a new city, a new job, give yourself some time, because it's going to take a while. You're going to be uncomfortable, but if you just focus on the tasks at hand, focus on the payoff, like you said, it's going to be okay. And staying sober and expect a little bit of uncomfortableness for a while, it'll come through in the end. But I'm enjoying these 8 strategies. Please continue.
Okay, number 6, build your support system. Seek the support of your friends, your family members. Transition period is a great opportunity to seek a counselor's assistance, and especially for someone that may have a limited support system, the counselor can definitely help guide them through the transition process in a safe and supportive environment. Number 7, acknowledge what you are leaving behind. The first step toward accepting the new is accepting and letting go of the past to make room for the new. And then number 8 is normal to feel as though your life is out of control. Find one tiny thing you can control right now to help you feel more in control.
Is there one aspect that you find people struggle with the most, Elizabeth?
I would say managing their thoughts, because our thoughts kind of drive every emotion, feeling that we have. So I find that people struggle the most with managing the thoughts that they're having, which is why number 8 is really, really important, because if you narrow that focus and focus on the thing that you can control, or even narrow it down to one tiny thing, then it gives you more of a sense of control over what's going on.
I love the list of 8. Is there a place where people can find that list and maybe some other helpful hints online?
Well, yes. Go to the Methodist EAP website, and all of our newsletters are on there. This was this month's newsletter, so they'll be able to access this information on there.
Okay, and what is the web address?
Methodist Healthcare Employee Assistance Program.org.
Okay, so methodisthealth.org.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. All right. Well, listen, Elizabeth Drain, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for laying it out for us, some of the issues that some people have when it comes to getting through those transitions in life. I think it really helped people to just kind of talk about it and let people know that, hey, this is a part of life. This is something that everyone goes through, and here's a way to handle it effectively. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you.
Andrew Douglas back here in the Action News 5 digital desk. A recent Forbes study, get this, finds 40% of responders, so that's almost 50%, that's almost half, 40% had their personal information compromised while using public Wi-Fi. So that's like airport Wi-Fi. That's bad news for travelers when you think about it. I mean, 1 in 3 say they rely on that airport Wi-Fi to do business or, you know, conduct all kinds of personal and other business out there. More than half of Americans confess to using these public networks at their hotel, for example. That's an issue, especially when you're trying to unwind on some traveling. How do you protect yourself against cyber criminals when you hear that kind of statistic? Well, it's something that is the topic of our next guest who's joining me right now. I'm joined by Jessica Naziri. She is a tech expert. She's someone who is also the chief technologist of TechSesh.co. Jessica, I appreciate you joining us here. Let's talk a little bit about some of the ways criminals, first off, target Americans, target travelers, and what we need to be aware of when we join these public Wi-Fis. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. You know, we don't even think about it. It's just common sense logging onto Wi-Fi, whether we're near home or traveling. And get this, you said that Norton study, literally everyone is getting on and they think they're safe, but 40% of Americans between the ages of 25 and 34 had their credit card details stolen while traveling. And then 33% have fallen for those free vacation scams. And you know what? This could be because they were using public Wi-Fi. So because of this, one of the first things I always recommend to travelers is to really be wary of public Wi-Fi networks. There are some bad actors out there setting up fake networks that look real. I've seen it at airports. I've seen it at hotels, even vacation rentals, my beloved coffee shop. They look like the real deal, but bad actors, they're collecting your personal information. So, you know, I understand Wi-Fi is important. You want to spend time looking on your Instagram, or you want to log into your email. You want to make sure before you join that you're not joining a Wi-Fi that is vague. For example, free airport Wi-Fi, red flag, or one that looks identical to the real one. For example, Denver airport _ free Wi-Fi _. It looks very similar to Denver airport free Wi-Fi without the underscores and the extra free. Another thing to be wary of is connecting to any network that lets you connect without asking you to agree to its terms of service.
All good information, but you know, some of the things I think about, Jessica, is when I'm in some places where public Wi-Fi is offered, I have to be on there, because if I try to just do it with my normal phone or, you know, laptop, for example, I mean, you know, the cell phone service is so poor that you have to join the Wi-Fi. So how do we protect ourselves?
Yeah, you're right. And so this is where a VPN comes in, a virtual private network. It's hands down the best and easiest way to protect your personal information. Not enough people know about it, so I'm here to tell you a VPN, super important to educate yourself. It's essentially a private tool that lets you get online securely from anywhere, and it protects you by disguising your IP address, and it creates a secure encrypted tunnel where all of your online activity flows. So essentially, this shields you from nearby cyber criminals who are getting really good at being criminals online. And a lot of them are actually using special equipment these days to snoop on your online activity. So that's one way to protect yourself.
What about some other tips out there? I mean, there's still people that are planning trips late in the summer. They're planning some trips for the fall and winter. What kind of other tips do you have?
Absolutely. So everyone that I know has been on vacation or about to go on vacation, just like you said. I've been seeing a lot of posts on social media. My biggest tip is, if you're going to take those pictures and you're going to post them, make sure you're not adding your location. And if you definitely really want to post those pictures, at least go on private and post those pictures when you're back from vacation, so no one knows you're not home. I'm actually in sunny LA right now on a staycation, and I'm actually using a VPN. I'm using Norton. I've partnered with them. A very great and easy way to stay safe online. I trust them. I know that if I'm home or on a vacation or traveling, that they will actually secure my information online.
Okay, so I was just about to ask you about VPNs. What are the best ways to take us through just kind of a one-on-one, 101 course, you know, basic course of VPNs and how to choose the right one?
Absolutely. So there's so many out there, but really it's affordable and it's a super easy way to reduce your risk when you go online. You don't want to get a VPN after the fact. If you're someone who checks your banking apps, surfing the web, goes on social media, going on to email, logging into really important information, which is literally everyone, you need a VPN, especially because you don't want that special information to fall into the wrong hands. So the best thing to do is get a VPN. I trust Norton. They have the Norton Secure VPN. And with them, it's super easy. You just have to go to their website, download the app, and you know that it's safe. You can go online and all your private information stays private.
What about, Jessica, where people can get more information about this topic? Because it's so important. It's an evergreen topic. I mean, we're always talking about cybersecurity, and we so need it badly.
We so need it badly. You can get more information on norton.com and search VPN. And something else that I really want to talk about, the cyber criminals are just getting so good. We also have artificial intelligence getting a lot of calls that are spammy and pretending to be a specific person. So Norton actually just launched a free app. It's called Norton Genie. It can tell you if a text, an email, or a website is a scam or legit. All you have to do is download the app on your phone, or if you have an iOS, the app is on there, or you can go onto the website, you upload a screenshot, you put in your message, and it tells you if it's real or if it's fake. And this really helps you avoid so many potential scams because they're getting so good.
Yeah, they are. No question about it. All right, Jessica Naziri, we appreciate you and giving us those tips that we desperately need to keep all of our private information safe online. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well, if you check out the pharmacy or sporting goods or anywhere online, you're sure to find a dizzy array of insect repellents, and all claiming to thwart those pesky bugs. But do they all work? And they're kind of getting expensive these days. Consumer Reports tested a bunch of them, and they reveal that some repellents are much better and more effective than others. Ariana Poindexter has more.
With a quick internet search, you can find easy DIY homemade insect repellent concoctions. And while the idea of using a repellent with more natural ingredients might sound appealing, Consumer Reports has a warning. The risks are just not worth it.
Mosquitoes and ticks can spread really dangerous diseases like West Nile virus and Lyme, so it's super important that you use an insect repellent that actually works.
Catherine Roberts is a science journalist with Consumer Reports.
Homemade repellents haven't been tested for efficacy or safety, so there's no guarantee that they'll actually work. And ingredients like essential oils can cause skin irritation or allergic reactions.
For years, Consumer Reports has tested many varieties of insect repellents, including many with natural ingredients. Each time, the results are similar. The most effective repellents include those that contain 25 to 30% DEET.
Our tests also found that some non-DEET repellents, like those containing 30% oil of lemon eucalyptus or 20% picaridin, also worked, though not quite as consistently as DEET.
Two repellents CR recommends: 3M Ultrathon Insect Repellent 8 and Ben's Tick and Insect Repellent Wilderness Formula Pump. Both provide excellent protection based on CR's rigorous tests. And how about repellent alternatives that you don't put on your skin that claim to keep the bugs away?
When it comes to things like citronella candles, wristbands, and sonic repellents, there's just very little evidence that shows any of these things really work.
Some proven tips to help keep mosquitoes and ticks at bay is to keep your yard free of containers filled with water and keep your lawn mowed and free of leaves and other debris.
Always good advice there. One church in Hawaii, switching gears now, is doing all it can to help the victims of the wildfires in the Maui area. Kaehi Tucker has more.
At King's Cathedral, every spare room is now a storage site with piles of donations for fire victims.
We welcome all the families that have been, devastated through the wildfires to come and get what they need.
The Kahului Church, which lost its Lahaina location in the fire, buzzes with volunteers trying to be of service while still grieving themselves.
My parents' home burned to the ground. My sister's home burned to the ground. My niece's house burned to the ground. I work here as receiving, and I can't believe how many truckloads and and helicopters we had to come here, dropping off things.
Amid all the work, things are falling into place for an even bigger project.
We'll have units in this section and this section.
Back across the highway, where the church owns 10 acres of scrubland.
We're trying to get over 200 of these mobile homes here. The Hungarian government flew these, I think about 30 of them, over on a C-17 for free. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
Pastor Joshua Morocco, working with numerous aid groups, secured these temporary homes, and teams of people are now helping to set them up on the fly.
We're learning a lot, how much you have to coordinate.
And here you are trying to figure out sewage and solar and water.
Water, everything, because this was bare land. So to go from bare land to having a product on the ground in 2 weeks is pretty incredible.
We thank God for the generosity of the hotels, but you can stay in a hotel for only so long before you start needing a place where you can cook your own food, and these will have bathrooms and kitchens.
They think the new village might be needed for 2 years. They aren't sure yet who will stay there, but they aren't waiting for the government to figure it all out.
Okay, and Action News 5's parent company, Gray Television, lending a hand through the Salvation Army to assist the people of Maui. They could really use our help. If you'd like to text and help, you can text the words fire relief to 51555. You can also scan the QR code on your screen or head to actionnews5.com for a link to give. There are so many discussions online or perhaps even in person about the proper ways to age, healthy aging, maybe ways to turn back the clock. So many different discussions, and it has been, a talk now that we've discussed for years, even decades. I mean, people want to learn how to age properly, the best ways. Everything from physical activity, food choices, and diet, of course. Let's talk more about this subject and really kind of do a deep dive with Anna Yang. She's a doctor over at Regional One Health, emergency family medicine doctor. Dr. Yang, thanks again for joining us on the digital desk. How important is physical activity when we age? Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. It's very, very important. Basically, as you age, your body's own innate ability to build up your bones and muscles starts to slow down. So it's really important that you actually are doing these things to encourage your body to continue good, strong muscle health, good bone health, and good joint health.
Yeah, I've always heard about not only physical activity and strength conditioning being huge and so important as you age, but also that diet. That diet is just as important. Some people think it's even more important. And when it comes to the diet, I always hear the Mediterranean diet is the best. Is that true? What would you say about diet versus exercise?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different diets out there. Most of them are aimed at specific things like weight loss. But the Mediterranean diet is really the only one out there that's actually been proven to have a benefit on your heart health or your cardiovascular health, things to prevent heart attacks and strokes and that kind of thing. So the Mediterranean diet, rather than focusing on counting calories and that kind of thing, is more of just an emphasis on certain types of foods that you should be eating. So these include things like, fresh vegetables and fruit, whole grains, and healthy fats like, from fish oil or from olive oil, and incorporating more lean meats and fish into the diet.
Yeah, I love the Mediterranean diet. Being Greek in my cultural background and my ethnicity, I do the Mediterranean diet all the time. What about sleep? Sleep is so important. We know that. But as we age, sometimes it's more difficult, it feels like, to get the proper amount of sleep. In your opinion, what's the proper amount, at least?
So really at least 7 to 8 hours a night for anyone, adults, but this is even more important as you age. During sleep, that's when your body recovers. So that includes your brain, that includes the rest of your body. So sleep is really, really important, especially for your brain health. As you age, memory is a big problem. And so to keep your brain healthy and sharp and active, and to kind of try to stave off memory loss as long as possible. Sleep is really, really important. It can be harder to sleep as you get older. Older people are generally on more different medications for different things. There might be issues with chronic pain. And so there are a lot of things that make it harder to sleep and stay asleep as you get older.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, we've done a few stories here at Action News 5 about loneliness and isolation contributing to maybe earlier deaths. And the more social someone is as they age, the better longevity and the better healthy aging they have. Can you talk a little bit about that topic?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, the older you get, the more likely you know somebody or have somebody close to you who's passed away. And so having that can definitely be a big thing on your mood and on your on depression, on your health. So as you age, the more you have social activity and the more you have abilities to connect with other people, you know, the more it's not just, you know, your physical health, but your mental health is also really, really important. And that also affects your physical health. So it's really easy once you're isolated. I mean, COVID proved that, to become depressed really, really quickly. And, you know, depression can make a huge difference on somebody's physical health, not just their mental health. We see it quite a bit, you know, as somebody gets, you know, more depressed and more isolated, they stop wanting to eat, they stop wanting to function. And as a result, you know, their body also starts to deteriorate physically.
What about supplements? You know, I hear so much about certain supplements. Oh, you have to take this, or you know, our food system doesn't have enough this, and so therefore you need to take this supplement every day. What's your take on that?
Honestly, I don't have a specific supplement I recommend. Now, if you decide you want to try a supplement, you know, you heard some information about it, as long as you talk to your doctor about it and you all agree that it's something, you know, that doesn't interfere with your medications or, you know, isn't negative for you, it's something you can try if you want to. Now, but I think if you are compliant with a good, healthy diet, you know, following the Mediterranean diet, making sure you're getting adequate nutrition and your normal foods, you really shouldn't need any additional supplements to stay healthy and happy.
What else can we talk about with healthy aging, Dr. Yang? There's got to be some other things I'm missing here.
Well, going back to the exercise, movement is just so important. As you get older, you know, osteoporosis is a big thing. Your bones don't grow and stay healthy as they would naturally when you're younger. So really resistance exercise, not just, you know, the cardiovascular exercise, aerobic exercise, but you also have to do some resistance exercise, you know, pick up some low weights and push those muscles to activate your bone growth. Make sure you're getting enough calcium and vitamin D. This becomes more important as you get older, to promote healthy bone growth. And then on the other side of it, you know, not just bones, but your heart health. So the aerobic exercise is, you know, continuing to move, even if it's not, you know, vigorous exercise anymore, even if that's just taking a walk. Sometimes walking can be hard on the joints though. So if you have access to, you know, a body of water like a pool or something, even if you don't know how to swim, just getting in the water, moving your muscles around against the resistance of the water, and moving so that, you know, your joints are staying active and you've got good range of motion. All of that makes a big difference, because, you know, if you don't want to move and you're hurting and, you know, the less you use your muscles and your bones, you know, the worse that's just going to get. So you really have to, you know, stay on top of everything and, you know, get yourself going, even if you don't feel like it some days.
A couple more questions, Dr. Yang. You mentioned vitamin D, and I've heard so many different people talk about how important vitamin D is to the body. In those winter months when the sun probably isn't out as much as we want it to be, is it important to take a supplement of vitamin D? Also, I want to ask you about cold plunges. We hear a lot about cold plunges really helping people, perhaps with their ailments, their body, their joints, their you know, movement. What do you think about that?
So let's start with the vitamin D. So in the winter months, yes, you're right. The sun's not out as much. So it is sometimes harder to get vitamin D, especially depending on where you live. Again, for the most part, if you're eating an adequate, healthy diet, you should get sufficient vitamin D, even from just, leafy green vegetables and different foods. But if you're concerned, your doctor can check your vitamin D level if necessary, especially if you have, problems with your bone health, to see if you need a supplement or not. But most people shouldn't need a vitamin D supplement, even in the wintertime, again, if they're getting enough, nutrition from a good, strong diet. As far as the cold plunge goes, I have, there are some people who swear by it and love doing it, and report all sorts of different benefits from it to their health. I say talk to your doctor about it before you try, because there are people with certain medical conditions who shouldn't do this. When you take that cold plunge, a lot of things happen to your body. Your blood vessels suddenly constrict. The way your heartbeat changes. There's a lot of different things that happen when somebody takes a cold plunge. So it might be okay for certain people, but for others, especially with certain health conditions, it is a bad idea potentially. So talk to your doctor first before you do something like that.
I appreciate the download on both of those. I do cold plunges, and it's really hard to go through it, but the after effects I feel after a cold plunge is incredible. But yeah, it's always good to talk to your doctor about that. Anything else before we let you go, Dr. Yang? This has been really helpful.
Not specifically. It just, all the normal things that you all already hopefully know to do, just becomes even more important as you age, because, your body's reserve is starting to come down. All the growth that you've set up as a young age is starting to slow down, and it's important when you're young to start building up those habits so it doesn't become a struggle to start doing as you're older. So, even if you're still in your 20s, 30s, or 40s or 50s, this is the time to start getting those healthy habits in, so that when you are older, it's a lot easier to keep those habits going, and the decline is a lot slower.
All right, Dr. Anna Yang, with Regional One Health, we really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for joining us here on ActionNews5.com, as well as the Action News 5 digital properties and Action News 5 Plus digital channels 5.5. All right, so impact forecast. We're talking more so the heat and humidity cranking up yet again. The heat stress feeling closer to 108 to 116. Here's the thing. Yesterday, we had a feels like temperature crest at 118 officially at Memphis International. And unfortunately, we'll probably do it again today. So take care of yourself in this heat if you do have to be outside for any prolonged period of time. Our friends who are working in construction, working sanitation, our police officers have to be outside for any length of time. Of course, the students playing in football and band practices here later on this afternoon. The heat is definitely going to be on. We'll top out close to 100 degrees. There might be a rogue shower to go along with that today amid a mixture of sunshine and clouds. I think more sun than not, as we've seen the last few days. 70s and 80s again to start off on your Friday. We'll do the whole process over again. A rogue shower here or there. Just more so the heat and humidity combination cranking up as we head through the afternoon hours for today. We'll drop down into the 70s and 80s for the afternoon hours, the morning hours of your Saturday. Notice to the north, some better rain chances sneaking in here. That is a front that is going to be working its way into the mid-south. That could kick up a couple of showers and storms. Still nearing 100 come Saturday. Still feeling closer to about 110 degrees, but maybe some of us getting some cooling relief from some showers and thunderstorms. We may have a few more showers and storms to contend with during the overnight period of your Saturday into Sunday. Another wave of showers and storms could be on the way as well, heading into Sunday night into early Monday. So when you look at it here, rain chances ahead. There might be, again, a rogue shower today, tomorrow. A little better chance could sneak in here on Saturday. That comes by way of that next front coming down the pipeline. And that next front will actually usher in some much cooler air from near 100 degrees that we get here today. to the 80s for highs going into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. We'll take that and run with it. There's your front dropping into the area. New area of low pressure forming close to St. Louis as we head towards Saturday morning. That front gets a little closer to us. That will help to spark the few showers and storms that we could kick up on late Saturday into early Sunday. Notice behind that front kind of hangs around, lingers, and may have a little batch of showers and storms across northern Arkansas to get into the start of your Monday. That front then works its way farther south and ushers in the cooler, drier air in the wake of it, and we'll feel much more comfortable heading into the end of the work week. All right, here's a look at what's going on here across the tropics. And we've got a couple of different things to speak about here this morning. Of course, we've got the remnants of Emily, which is still working its way northward. That could try to regenerate here shortly. We also have Franklin, which is making its way north of Hispaniola this morning and could very well have some impacts for Bermuda here in the next couple of days. Notice the track here kind of goes cattywampus. As it gets caught up with a frontal boundary, they'll be moving offshore. That's the same front that's going to usher in the cooler air for us. So it'll stay offshore of the U.S. mainland, but it will likely bring some indirect impacts, surf and issues more so than anything else. Then in the Gulf of Mexico, okay? This is something that we're going to be watching here. This is actually not in the Gulf. It's a disturbance that is actually over Central America. This is what we call the Central American Gyre. And sometimes you can get these gyres to get a little bit more concentrated, spawn off into the warmer waters of the Caribbean or the Gulf, and sometimes can get a tropical system to flare up with it. That has a medium chance of development here in the next couple of days, and you notice the track here through 7 days up into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Some of the modeling does suggest that this does develop into a tropical system. To what extent to be seen at this point, but most indicators also keep it to our south and towards the east. So places like the Florida Peninsula, Florida Panhandle, South Georgia, into the Carolinas. That'll be something for them to watch in the next few days. For us, it's more so high pressure that dominates the weather as we head through much of next week. So here's a look at our 7-day forecast. 100 today, 102 tomorrow, nearing records today, tomorrow, even getting closer to record on Saturday. The record high on Saturday, set back in 1943, 103 degrees. We'll fall short of that on Saturday, with a chance for a front to bring us a chance for a few showers and storms. We'll take whatever we can get. We need the rainfall at this point. Sunday into Monday, I think that rain chance 30% is a little highest for the morning hours of your Monday, then turning partly sunny. Then we should dry things out. Maybe a lingering shower overnight Monday into early Tuesday. It's all done, and then sunshine to return through the mid portion of next week. The 86 here in Memphis will translate to lower 80s in places like Dyersburg, as well as Friendship and down towards Brownsville as we head through your Wednesday. So some cooler weather is on the way, but we have to get past the searing summer heat. Take care of yourself in this heat. Being neighborly, checking in on folks who may not have adequate access to cooling relief, and just staying hydrated. Remember the mantra we have said the last couple of days: pre-hydrate, hydrate, rehydrate, as we continue with the searing heat at least through Saturday.
Certainly the heat is on, and it's going to be on for high school football and some of the college games that are happening this weekend. But right now I want to talk about Memphis Tiger football. Look at that, because the Tiger season is right around the corner. There it is on the cover of the Memphis Flyer Memphis Flyer newspaper right now on newsstands. It's arm strength, and there's a picture of Seth Hennigan there. The 2023 Memphis Tigers will go as far as junior quarterback. Seth Hennigan leads them. Joining me now to talk more about his cover story is Frank Murtaugh with the Memphis Flyer, joining us on the digital desk. Frank, good to see you as always, and tell me more about this Tiger team, because I'm hearing all kinds of different things, and the expectations are, you know, I would say mid to high level for this upcoming season. What do you think? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Andrew. You know, there was a time when the Tiger football season was sort of a placeholder on the Memphis sports calendar for the arrival of basketball in the winter, but that's no longer the case. You know, the last 10 years, 9 straight years of bowl eligibility and a Cotton Bowl appearance, 3 top 25 finishes for this program. The standards are higher, and you know, that's where you know, how they come out of the gate is important. Last year, the Tigers started well, won 4 straight. Then they had a 4-game losing streak, and Ryan Silverfield, starting his 4th year as head coach, would be the first to tell you that you can't you can't sneak a 4-game losing streak into a football season, as brief as it is. So yeah, we wanted to take a look at Seth Hennigan. He's a rare breed in that he's a third-year quarterback. There are only 15 quarterbacks in all of college football, the highest level, 133 programs, only 15 quarterbacks with more experience than young Mr. Hennigan. So he is the face of this program for, I would say, at least the next 3 months. And as we note on the cover, how he plays is going to say a lot about how the Tigers perform and how large the number in their win column becomes this year.
Yeah, I mean, especially the game now, the college football game especially, is so incumbent on the quarterback play and how the quarterback does, and to have a seasoned guy behind center like that is a huge feather in the cap of Ryan Silverfield. Interesting to hear about him being one of the older and more experienced quarterbacks in the league. I mean, only 15 more have more experience. That's incredible. And the expectations for this year, I know that there's a lot of, especially some of those old Tiger faithful fans, they're waiting for the Highland 100 types. They're waiting for, the Big 12 to call them up and say, hey, come on board. But that's not happening anytime soon. So as a result, what are we expecting for the year ahead? I mean, yes, Seth Hennigan certainly is the cover guy, but what are we expecting as a team?
Yeah, the landscape's really shaky, Andrew, with the conference realignment and the musical chairs we're all playing. Who knows where the last seat's going to be available? And Memphis, let's be honest, Memphis needs to be in a larger league. A league where the kind of TV revenue and booster revenue is going to be something that takes them to the next tier. They don't want to be left behind. All that said, this is a new season for the American Athletic Conference. There's no more Cincinnati. There's no more UCF. No more Houston. These are big rivals over the years for the Tigers. The last 10, 20 years. You're going to have new opponents like Charlotte on the schedule. An old rival, UAB, is back in the mix, a team that Memphis played every year when they were in Conference USA. That's not necessarily the direction you want to go with the program. You want to get the attention of the likes of the Big 12, the ACC, whatever comes out of the Pac-12's immolation. It's going to be interesting. But I've always said, when asked about what the Tigers need to do to gain some traction and the right kind of attention, and it's win. You put up wins, which they did regularly under Justin Fuente and then Mike Norvell. The last 2 years, a combined record of 13-12. That's not going to cut it. And again, Ryan Silverfield will be the first to tell you that. So, with Seth Hennigan, at quarterback, and that transfer portal, there's so many new faces. Are those guys going to mesh in time for the opener on September 2nd? It's a big question. They're playing an FCS team in Bethune-Cookman. It should be a win, but then you jump right into the harder part of the schedule, having to travel to Jonesboro with Arkansas State. You got to pile up wins, and if you get those wins, track crowds to Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, you're gonna capture the right eyes. I'm convinced.
They got a tough one in St. Louis with Missouri. That's going to be a really tough contest. But that'll be a good measuring stick, I think, for the team, kind of early on. I believe that's September 24th. And I hate the fact that, the Big 12 isn't knocking on our door. I guess with the Pac-12 or the Pac-4 right now, it's, conference realignment is just, it's all over the place. But it is disappointing to a lot of people that it hasn't shown up. The Pac-12 or Big 12 really hasn't shown up in Memphis. Do you think it's more of maybe a combination of a number of different factors, maybe one of which is we're not the big media markets as maybe some of the other Pac-12 teams are. We don't have a new stadium. It's not on campus. I mean, what do you think it is in your opinion, Frank?
Yeah, it's hard to get your hands around because it's more than what you see on the gridiron or during the winter at FedEx Forum with basketball. The you've got academic standards, you've got the economics of what a university is producing, the research level. There are so many different moving parts, as I understand them, when these athletic directors and presidents get together to decide who makes the right fraternity. And it's humbling, and it's deflating for Memphis to be sort of outside the dance hall as long as we have. There was such a celebration. You remember years ago, it's almost a decade now, when Memphis made it into the Big East, only to see the Big East dissolve into what became the American Athletic Conference and a different version of the Big East that's entirely basketball. It's deflating. I don't know what more Memphis could put out there. The university is rising. It's becoming a better, stronger academic institution. Dr. Rudd was a terrific leader, if you ask me, over his years in making the university a different kind of player on the larger scale. We're just going to have to see. I think it's it would be a surprise to me if in the just next few months something dramatic happened for Memphis, but in the next 2 to 3 years, something's going to have to happen, or athletically speaking, the university is going to be second tier. There are going to be 3, maybe 4 mega conferences, and if you're not in one of those, it's a different kind of ballgame you're playing.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And, in the words of the former Raiders owner, Al Davis, just win, baby. I mean, they just got to keep winning. And a great article and a great preview is this one that Frank wrote on the Memphis Flyer, memphisflyer.com. You can read it for yourself. It is free. And it talks about Seth Hennigan. And as Seth Hennigan goes, so does the Memphis Tigers this season. Final thoughts on the season ahead, Frank, before we let you go.
Well, I would tell fans just to appreciate Seth Hennigan while we have him. He's a special kid. Came to Memphis in the spring of 21, what would have been his senior year in high school, to acclimate himself. You remember this was the lingering pandemic conditions we were all under, and he found himself just a few months later starting the opener that fall when Grant Gunnell, the expected starter, went down. So this young man's been on a fast track since he left high school. And I would think this is the year that he's going to make himself someone that Memphis fans remember into posterity or otherwise. And so, and I'm leaning toward the former. So we'll see.
Okay, Frank Murtaugh with the Memphis Flyer and the cover story there, the Tigers preview. Frank, we really appreciate your time. Anytime you come on the digital desk, it's always a great conversation. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
All right, appreciate you. So now let's talk about and switch gears a little bit from sports, and let's talk about a crime that's affecting our teens. Very, very serious crime. Law enforcement are calling it sextortion, and these crimes are on the rise, but a lack of funding and resources often keep criminals ahead of their investigators who are already stretched too thin. We have investigative reporter Carice Jackman that spoke with the father of a sextortion victim who wants to hear his child's story. We do want to warn you, this discussion involves suicide in this piece. Take a look.
A star athlete with a constant smile on his face.
He was just always rough and tough, but he was always polite.
Is the best way Brian Montgomery remembers his son, Walker.
Growing up, Walker was, just always the kid that wanted to please.
Walker shined on and off the field, but the special light in Walker's 16-year-old life was dimmed because of what happened online.
Walker died as a result from suicide as a result from the pressures brought on by sextortion.
Montgomery says Walker was approached online by someone pretending to be a teenage girl. The exchange started off normally. Walker and who he thought was a teenage girl talked about things Walker loved, like sports. Eventually, the pretend teen got him to participate in a sexual act using video chat.
Well, all the time, Walker didn't know it, but he was being recorded. At the end of that episode, they come back and said, okay, you're going to give us $1,000, we're going to send this to everybody that you know.
Walker pleaded for the predator not to release it.
And then they start sending Walker screenshots of them sending the videos out. And Walker tells them, I'm going to kill myself. And these people respond with, go ahead, because you're already dead anyway.
How long was the exchange between this person and Walker? Did it last several weeks, or was it just a couple of days?
It was that single night, one night. They approached him at midnight of December the 1st, and Walker committed suicide that same morning.
It was that quick that they were
that fast.
Montgomery later found out about the online exchange when authorities confiscated Walker's phone during the investigation.
They were able to track the perpetrators to Nigeria, and they were able to send a subpoena to Instagram, figure out where that IP address originated from.
According to the FBI and Homeland Security investigations, there's been a rise of incidents like Walker's, where children and teens are being coerced into sending sexually explicit images or videos online and then extorted for money, a crime known as financial sextortion. Law enforcement received over 7,000 reports over the past year of online financial sextortion of minors, with at least 3,000 victims, most of them boys. The FBI reported over a dozen suicides in the last year because of this scheme.
I mean, sadly, we know of numerous instances where children have taken their own life because the pressure and the fear of embarrassment and exposure is so great that they have seen no other alternative other than suicide, which is extremely tragic.
Mike Prado is Deputy Assistant Director of the Homeland Security Investigations Cybercrime Center. Its center in Virginia examines everything from dark web cyber criminals to child exploitation. The FBI and HSI work together and split their responsibilities. The agencies found most extortion criminals originate in Nigeria and the Ivory Coast. The FBI tackles extortion investigations out of Nigeria, while HSI investigates cases coming out of the Ivory Coast. Prado says they've recently hosted the security minister of the Ivory Coast to combat and stop sextortion scammers.
We're working collaboratively to identify organizations and individuals who are perpetuating this crime against children, not just in the United States, but around the world.
In the United States, HSI partners with 61 Internet Crimes Against Children task forces from coast to coast. The task force agencies say they receive thousands of cyber tips a year. But when it comes to actually tracking which cases are sextortion by number, we've uncovered most agencies don't have those statistics. Despite the rise in this cyber crime, one agency after another told us they don't have a state statute or criminal code that deals specifically with sextortion. Indiana told us these cases might fall under numerous Indiana laws. Florida says there is no state statute that deals specifically with sextortion. South Carolina recently passed a bill to crack down on sextortion, making the crime punishable by up to 30 years in prison. And while a handful of states do provide sextortion state statutes, there's no national law specifically for sextortion, and not all states get the same funding for investigating cases.
You know, while we do get federal funding through that, we also are extremely thankful that we also get state funding here in Washington State. So our Washington State legislature has provided us additional funds for this as well. So not every state has that.
Sergeant Brandon James is head of the ICAC task force in Seattle, Washington. He took us exclusively inside their task force facility.
I have about 7 detectives, but we cover just normal ICAC investigations. I also have a detective who just does criminal intelligence, and I have detectives who also do digital forensics. And so they are specifically trained in mobile and computer forensics. So when we do collect digital items of evidence, that they go through those in a very systematic way for gathering that evidence for court.
Like many agencies, the Seattle Task Force noticed a sharp increase over the last year, tied to online crimes targeting children.
Investigating these kind of crimes isn't your typical law enforcement investigation. It does provide an additional level of training and experience and aptitude to investigate the internet. And not all police departments have that training.
Sergeant James also says they're probably only getting a fraction of what's occurring because most people don't know where to turn when sextortion hits their home. He says his team works hard not only to investigate sextortion, but to educate parents, teachers, students, and even people in law enforcement.
I've been trying to do as much as we can, getting the message out to the officers that are responding to these suicides to say, hey, if you're responding to a teen suicide, you might want to think about collecting some digital evidence, particularly their cell phone.
As a family at home, my wife's missing her son. Walker's brothers and sisters are missing their brother.
Montgomery uses his son's tragedy to alert people across the country. He plans to travel to Washington, D.C. and testify before Congress to continue to share Walker's story, hoping teenagers will listen and be careful about who they talk to online.
If one person sees this, 10 people see this, and the things we're doing, and it changes somebody else, that's a win. And somebody, a bad guy on the other side of the world, just lost one, and we gained one.
Hey, thanks for joining us here on ActionNews5.com, as well as the Action News 5 digital properties and Action News 5 Plus digital channels 5.5. All right, so impact forecasts. We're talking more so the heat and humidity cranking up yet again. The heat stress feeling closer to 108 to 116. Here's the thing. Yesterday, we had a feels like temperature crest at 118 officially at Memphis International. And unfortunately, we'll probably do it again today. So take care of yourself in this heat if you do have to be outside for any prolonged period of time. Our friends who are working in construction, working sanitation, our police officers have to be outside for any length of time. Of course, the students playing in football and band practices here later on this afternoon. The heat is definitely going to be on. We'll top out close to 100 degrees. There might be a rogue shower to go along with that today amid a mixture of sunshine and clouds. I think more sun than not, as we've seen the last few days. 70s and 80s again to start off on your Friday. We'll do the whole process over again. A rogue shower here or there. Just more so the heat and humidity combination cranking up as we head through the afternoon hours for today. We'll drop down into the 70s and 80s for the afternoon hours, the morning hours of your Saturday. Notice to the north, some better rain chances sneaking in here. That is a front that is going to be working its way into the mid-south. That could kick up a couple of showers and storms. Still nearing 100 come Saturday. Still feeling closer to about 110 degrees, but maybe some of us getting some cooling relief from some showers and thunderstorms. We may have a few more showers and storms to contend with during the overnight period of your Saturday into Sunday. Another wave of showers and storms could be on the way as well, heading into Sunday night into early Monday. So when you look at it here, rain chances ahead. There might be, again, a rogue shower today, tomorrow. A little better chance could sneak in here on Saturday. That comes by way of that next front coming down the pipeline. And that next front will actually usher in some much cooler air from near 100 degrees that we get here today to the 80s for highs going into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. We'll take that and run with it. There's your front dropping into the area. New area of low pressure forming close to St. Louis as we head towards Saturday morning. That front gets a little closer to us. That will help to spark the few showers and storms that we could kick up on late Saturday into early Sunday. Notice behind that front kind of hangs around, lingers, and may have a little batch of showers and storms across northern Arkansas to get into the start of your Monday. That front then works its way farther south and ushers in the cooler, drier air in the wake of it, and we'll feel much more comfortable heading into the end of the work week. All right, here's a look at what's going on here across the tropics. And we've got a couple of different things to speak about here this morning. Of course, we've got the remnants of Emily, which is still working its way northward. That could try to regenerate here shortly. We also have Franklin, which is making its way north of Hispaniola this morning and could very well have some impacts for Bermuda here in the next couple of days. Notice the track here kind of goes cattywampus as it gets caught up with a frontal boundary. They'll be moving offshore. That's the same front that's going to usher in the cooler air for us. So we'll stay offshore of the U.S. mainland, but it will likely bring some indirect impacts, surf and issues more so than anything else. Then in the Gulf of Mexico, okay? This is something that we're going to be watching here. This is actually not in the Gulf. It's a disturbance that is actually over Central America. This is what we call the Central American gyre. And sometimes you can get these gyres to get a little bit more concentrated, spawn off into the warmer waters of the Caribbean or the Gulf, and sometimes can get a tropical system to flare up with it. There has a medium chance of development here in the next couple of days, and you notice the track here through 7 days up into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Some of the modeling does suggest that this does develop into a tropical system. To what extent to be seen at this point, but most indicators also keep it to our south and towards the east. So places like the Florida Peninsula, Florida Panhandle, South Georgia, into the Carolinas. That'll be something for them to watch in the next few days. For us, it's more so high pressure that dominates the weather as we head through much of next week. So here's a look at our 7-day forecast. 100 today, 102 tomorrow, nearing records today, tomorrow, even getting closer to record on Saturday. The record high on Saturday, set back in 1943, 103 degrees. We'll fall short of that on Saturday, with a chance for a front to bring us a chance for a few showers and storms. We'll take whatever we can get. We need the rainfall at this point. Sunday into Monday, I think that rain chance 30% is a little highest for the morning hours of your Monday, then turning partly sunny. Then we should dry things out. Maybe a lingering shower overnight Monday into early Tuesday. It's all done, and then sunshine to return through the mid portion of next week. The 86 here in Memphis will translate to lower 80s in places like Dyersburg, as well as Friendship and down towards Brownsville as we head through your Wednesday. So some cooler weather is on the way, but we have to get past the searing summer heat. Take care of yourself in this heat. Being neighborly, checking in on folks who may not have adequate access to cooling relief, and just staying hydrated. Remember the mantra we have said the last couple of days: pre-hydrate, hydrate, rehydrate, as we continue with the searing heat at least through Saturday.
Okay, Andrew Douglas back here in the Action News 5 digital desk. I want to go now to one of our friends who gives us such great knowledge when it comes to getting a job, looking at the job market, resume help. Angela Copeland, she's Vice President of Recruiter.com. Angela, good morning. How are you?
Hey, thank you for having me.
No, I appreciate you making time for us because it is such a workers market out there. Employees really have a lot of options right now beginning in 2022. And we want to talk about resumes and the best way to let your resume kind of speak for yourself, stand out, and some of the mistakes that people make out there. But let's begin with making that resume stand out, Angela.
Well, this is such an exciting time to be looking for a job, but the thing that you need first is you need a resume. So even if you don't need a job today, but you're thinking sometime in the next few months, get started and have one ready. I think that is the first mistake that people make, is that they wait until someone says to me, email me your resume, and then they've got to start from scratch. And it's just like a total panic trying to get it together.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, no question. And so once you get that resume developed, what are some ways, I guess, that you could enhance that resume?
Sure, absolutely. I think the very first thing is you should do the resume yourself. Very often people want to hire someone to write their resume for them. It's a very attractive option, right? Because it's kind of a pain. You're shoving years of experience into 1 or 2 pages, and that's what I would suggest, is 1 whole page or 2 whole pages. But I've noticed that when people hire out their resume writing, sometimes there will be errors in it. So you really want to write your own resume. You want to pay very specific attention to things like spelling, because if you do have spelling errors, there's a chance they will just kick you right out. I would also think about the fact that a lot of hiring managers or HR professionals, they will read what is at the top of the first page first. And so really focus your energy on making that portion of your resume look good. Also, if there's a particular job you're applying to, closely read the job description and make sure that anything that's mentioned in the job description that you know how to do is also included in your resume. So the words that are in your resume are just as important as the actual sort of format and look and feel. I mean, it's like you wouldn't show up to an interview in shorts and flip-flops the same way that you want your resume to actually look polished and like you've put some work into it.
What are your thoughts, Angela, on cover letters?
This is such an interesting question. It's very controversial. A lot of people want to say that cover letters are no longer a thing. But I will tell you, when you're applying for a job, if there are 2 equally qualified candidates, of course, they're both going to have a resume. And if one has a cover letter, that one will be given special treatment. And in other words, the cover letter is a chance to really explain why you're a good fit for the job. And that's your chance to sell yourself, because when a hiring manager or a recruiter read through your resume, they're sort of figuring out why you're a good fit. Like, they're having to piece it together. But the cover letter is your chance to really explain it to them. So I would take the time to do a cover letter. You want to explain why you're interested in the job, why you're a good fit, and do summarize some of your background. So you will be repeating some of the things that are on your resume on your cover letter.
Yeah, great advice there. Are there, and you mentioned, making sure that you do the resume yourself so you get a nice, accurate depiction for that prospective employer. Are there any structures out there, Word, do they have any advantages when it comes to building that resume? Is there any place you can go to really kind of use, I don't know, some software?
It's a good question. So the way that your resume looks, I really think it depends on the industry that you work in. If you work in a traditional industry like engineering, I would go with a much more straightforward look to your resume, like a more old-fashioned look. If you work in sort of a hip industry like marketing or possibly sales, I would look for something that's more stylized. So Microsoft Word does have templates. Interestingly enough, the website Etsy.com also sells resume templates that are really quite stylized and nice if you're working in marketing, for example. So there are places that you can look for these stylized, resume formats, but I would not use them unless you're working in an industry that is especially sort of hip and cool.
So on one of the websites, and I'm just looking here, my producer and I were checking this out, it mentioned something about the possibility of maybe adding hobbies or interests in a section on your resume, just to kind of, go with that work culture that a lot of corporations and a lot of different offices are going towards. What are your thoughts on maybe putting interests and hobbies on that resume?
It's a good question. There have been times in my own career where I have included hobbies and interests, and there have been times where I've absolutely left them off. So I would say it really is a case-by-case basis. I would think about why you're adding them. So for me, I started out, my undergrad is computer and systems engineering. I started out as a computer programmer. And when I was trying to get employers to see me as more than someone who writes computer code, I started including hobbies. But of course, I picked hobbies that were interesting, like travel, that could get a conversation going. Another potential place to include hobbies is if you're looking to transition away from your current industry, and if in some way your hobby aligns to the industry that you want to move into. So it's both really, am I trying to get an employer to just see me differently, or am I trying to get an employer to understand how I might fit into their industry?
Excellent, excellent. Now, there's something else when it comes to follow-up, because a lot of us, want to hear right back, right away, on demand. What's the employer? Are they interested? What do they think of this? What are your guidelines for following up after you send your resume?
That's a good question. I would say if you know who to contact, feel free to send them an email. Or if you've had an interview, send them a thank you email afterward. And, every, say, 2 weeks or so, it's appropriate to send a follow-up email. I would not send too many because you may be sort of labeled as sort of difficult or annoying, but you do need to get an answer. I would say don't assume that you will get a job, no matter how qualified you are for it. If you really need a new job, keep looking until a company actually gives you an offer, because anything could happen. Like, for example, they could put the position on hold completely, or the hiring manager could leave the company and they could decide not to hire the position, or they could decide to hire in the future. So just keep looking until you actually have a job offer in hand.
Okay, let's talk now about some of the mistakes that people make on those resumes. We've talked about the enhancements, now things that are completely wrong.
There are a number of things that people can really work on their resumes. One of the big ones I would say is look at the email address that you're using on your resume. So a lot of folks like to use email addresses like AOL. And what that communicates to the employer is that you're a bit out of date in terms of technology, and you don't want that being the thing that you're communicating. So look for something like a Gmail email address that would be a good fit. You also, when it comes to email address, you want to use an email address that is related to your name. So not a hobby, not like horseback rider at AOL.com. And you also don't want to include anything in that email address that is an indication of your age. So many people will put their birth year in their email address or the year they graduated from high school. You want to steer clear of any of that information. I would leave off a photo. Do not include a photo of yourself on your resume. That is done in some countries, but in the US, people do not include photos on their resume. It's an unusual thing to do. So those are a couple of areas that I would start with. Again, keeping things honest and consistent. So look for errors that are spelling errors, but also make sure that you're not fibbing, because it could get back to your previous employer, and that's not how you want to start out with any new job.
Okay, so we got the resume all situated, all nice and pretty for everybody. Then you have to do something about your social media, right? Because a lot of times when we'll hear somebody or we'll meet somebody, they'll immediately go and see if they can find them on social media, and you want to make sure that's legitimate, right?
Well, so yes, it's interesting because, 20 years ago, this was sort of a non-issue, but we've all been posting for the last so many years on Facebook, for example. And so there's a huge history of information available about us on the internet. If you are starting to launch a real job search and you're starting to have interviews, I would go in and at a bare minimum, I'd look at your privacy settings. Look and see what could someone see on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on your Instagram if they were not friends with you. Because you want to be sure that anything public really represents the brand that you're putting forward in the job interview. I do think this is a real issue. Many times you talk to job seekers and they assume that a company would never Google you and would never look things up about you, but they do. They really do. So you want to do it first and make sure that what's out there really represents you in the best way possible.
Okay, Angela, all great advice.
I'm not sure I
very
understand.
effective here. Can we, anything else you want to mention before we let you go regarding resumes, do's, don'ts, anything?
I think the biggest thing is get started now. This is such an exciting time to be looking for a job, as you mentioned. And the last thing you want is to really be caught behind the 8 ball, so to speak. So update your resume. Keep things quiet, but ask a close friend to proofread your resume for you because they will find errors that you may have missed.
All right, Angela Copeland, Vice President, Recruiter.com. Great advice. We appreciate it very much. And thanks so much. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you.
Amanda Hansen back here at the Action News 5 digital desk. And today we are talking about a sport that is gaining massive popularity. And if you haven't heard, it's pickleball. And so many people are enjoying the sport, getting outside, and it has a lot of really good benefits. So joining me now to help talk a little bit more about this is Dr. Joe Lamplot with Campbell Clinic. Good morning, doctor. How you doing?
Hi, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you on here. Before we get started, have you played pickleball? Are you a fan?
I'm a huge fan. I've been playing actually for about 5 years. So before this exploded over the past year, I got into it a little bit early and I love it.
That's awesome. It's funny because several years ago, I'd say probably like 10 plus years ago, I actually did a news story about how pickleball was really picking up and a lot of people were excited about it. And since then, it's just exploded even more. So let's just talk about some of the benefits of this sport.
It's keeping people active, some of which really have not been active till they found pickleball. It allows people to get good cardio activity. It allows people that maybe don't like the intensity of tennis and other sports. Since the court's smaller, it allows them to get around the court a little bit easier. And people are able to stay active, oftentimes for hours at a time. So it's great cardio. It's enjoyable. Some people don't enjoy being inside, sitting on an elliptical for, 45 minutes to an hour. So it's just a better way to enjoy exercise. And it's also quite social.
And I mean, this is a sport that people of all levels and ages are trying and playing. Can we talk about maybe some of the common injuries, though, that could pop up?
Yeah, so as with any sport, we're seeing lots of participation in pickleball at all age levels, and injuries happen. You know, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be partaking in these activities. And I always tell patients, we want you to be active. We need you to be active. You know, movement is the zest of life. So the injuries that we're seeing most commonly are overuse. So overuse shoulder injuries, overuse elbow injuries like tennis elbow. We also see acute injuries, ankle sprains, people rolling their ankles, knee injuries. So we're seeing kind of the whole gamut, but the majority is kind of overuse injuries that tend to occur with lots of activity.
So how do you know if say, you know, your elbow or something starts to bother you? How do you know if it's something minor or you need to actually call someone, go into a doctor and get it checked out further?
So if there's any swelling in any joint, you should go get it checked out ASAP. If you notice any limited motion, if you can't bend it fully or straighten it out fully, you should have it looked at by a doctor. You know, if it's something that's just achy after a lot of playing pickleball, you can try some ice, some anti-inflammatories like Advil and Aleve, and if it gets better, that's fine. But if you're limited, if you're weak, if you're lacking motion or swelling, that needs to be evaluated by a physician.
How quickly should someone get in if they think they have some sort of serious injury from playing?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you have issues weight bearing, issues putting weight on a leg, if you rolled your ankle, if you hurt your knee, that should be seen same day. That should be seen pretty much immediately. Anything that's really limiting you should be seen ASAP. Lots of places, including ourselves, have walk-in clinics where we can see patients same day, same evening, next day. So I would say if it's limiting you, if it's bothering you, if it's swollen, if it's painful, come see somebody ASAP.
So how often are you seeing people that are coming in? Obviously, you're a pickleball fan yourself, but how often are you seeing people come in that maybe do have those injuries that need to get looked at?
So I would say at least a few times a week, and it's increasing in frequency. So, you know, a year ago, you'd see pickleball injuries, you know, once every few weeks, maybe once a month. But with the increasing frequency, you look at, you know, golf clubs, tennis clubs, they're closing off courts to basically, you know, allow people to play pickleball. Same thing with public tennis courts. They're basically closing these areas off to allow pickleball only courts. So with increasing participation, we're seeing injuries almost on a daily basis at our clinic.
Oh, wow. You know, we've been talking a lot about injuries, but like any sport, there are ways to maybe help prevent injuries from happening. Do you have any advice as far as that goes?
Absolutely. So the two things I recommend are, you know, beyond just doing a warm-up where you're stretching out, make sure you're doing some kind of a dynamic warm-up, such as running around the court, cutting, pivoting, doing some simulation of pickleball before you actually play. Some light serving, some hitting the ball back and forth before you actually dive into the games. So you should probably be doing about 10 to 15 minutes of stretching, jogging, light hitting before you actually start playing, just to decrease the risk and get that body ready for those aggressive movements.
Good advice. And if we have people that are maybe listening, watching this right now on our various live streams, how can they get in touch with you? Where can they go to get some more information?
Yeah, so the best way to get in touch with us is to go to campbellclinic.com. You can book directly online to you know, have care with one of us at the Campbell Clinic. The other way is to call 901-759-3111, and that's our direct line to schedule appointments with us.
All right, good deal. Anything else, Doctor, you want to mention before we let you go this morning?
Yeah, the other thing in terms of prevention is, you know, make sure pickleball isn't the only thing you're doing. So on days that you're not playing, it's good to get cardio through jogging. It's good to lift weights. Do something else aside from pickleball. Same thing with young athletes. We usually recommend not focusing on a single sport, but trying to kind of be a little bit more well-rounded. Same with pickleball. Make sure you're doing a little bit of something else too.
And another good thing that I do love about pickleball is you can play it indoors, because we're going to have some hot temperatures today, and obviously we're getting into the summer months, so that's another benefit if people are probably trying to look to get some exercise and maybe avoid being outside, right?
Absolutely, and if you are going to be outside, short bursts and stay very hydrated.
All right, well, Dr. Joe Lamplot with Campbell Clinic, thank you so much for your time and joining us here on the Action News 5 Digital Desk. You have a great one, all right?
All right, thank you, Amanda. You too.
Thank you.
All righty, that does it for us here in the Action News 5 digital desk. We got Ariana Poindexter coming up at the top of the hour, Action News 5 midday, and it's going to be chock full of all kinds of things. We have an update on the special session that's happening in Nashville. We're also talking about the heat. The heat is the big story that's affecting all of us here. It got to incredibly high numbers yesterday, dangerous levels. The feel-like temperature yesterday was 118. 118 degrees. That's when you factor in humidity in addition to the heat. So it's expected to be another hot one today. Take frequent breaks. Watch out there. So that is certainly something that's going to be discussed at Action News 5's midday report, and along with a ton of other stories that you need to watch as we get going here at the top of the hour. So we'll leave you with this high five camera from our Midtown Memphis camera, looking at the distance there, downtown Memphis. Have a great rest of your day.